ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, home of the world-famous Indianapolis 500, but tonight plays host to Week 6 of the Octane Online Racing North American Sprint Series. Hello everybody, my name is Nick Amon, and I want to welcome you to the broadcast. As always, it is going to be just me here in the booth for the start of tonight's festivities, but we will be joined later on by Mr. Kevin Parody and Sam Raworth. They just have to get through their races first, and then we will be out and about for the second half for the Druids split. But these drivers here coming off of an extra week break from the last race that we had. We had a pretty solid outing, I would say so, last week. I was here earlier in the day for the European split, so it's a little bit of deja vu. We had only 13 cars show up, but they really did put on quite a show for us. And they did an amazing job of keeping us in the booth entertained, something that we tend to struggle with as we are talking to what feels like the void half the time, even though each other is something we have company to work with. But no, we are here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the last of the three new tracks in the North American DLC that obviously these drivers are participating in. Starting with, of course, the Corkscrew split. Moving on later. Right now, though, it's Timothy Flomger up top of free practice with a 35.5. As we see Sam here getting a little squirrely. We did see 134 in the EU split by Felion, but I mean that man was so far ahead of it. Literally anybody else, it wasn't even close to a competition. But yes, we are here in the States one more time this season, and then in 1 week's time, we're hopping across the pond over to France at Paul Ricard for the last race of the season. Of course, that will be a super sprint. It has been quite a while since we've actually had a super sprint. If you guys recall, we had a super sprint the very first week of this season 10 of the Sprint Series at Kyalami. So starting it off as super sprint on the African continent and ending it on the European continent with another super sprint. And speaking of seasons, registrations for Season 11 of the Sprint Series are now open, and believe it or not, for next season we are going to have a sponsor, sponsored by SimRigs. You may have heard of them from our special event broadcast at Paul Ricard. They were one of our generous sponsors. So to them, of course, we thank them for their continued support. And we also thank them for just being a very solid choice if you're looking for some sim racing gear. But this is the last season that will have the OOR label at the front of it. But you know what? Hey, sponsors are always good. So if you're in the rookie series and you're looking to move up, hey, register for the Sprint Series. Costs you literally nothing other than a little piece of your soul. But then again, it is sim racing. When have we not given our souls to this game? We'll follow the same schedule and format. Although, as I say that, it looks like they may have actually updated the page to a mini endurance series. Ooh, that's interesting. So we do have the sprints and the super sprints, and they still have the extended tab up on the website that just tells us that it's an hour and a half with 2 mandatory stops. But it seems like it says mini enduro, so maybe they're changing that. That'll be at Silverstone, of all places, and definitely some news out of the UK. As of today, the passing of Queen Elizabeth, 70 years on the throne. That is quite impressive, I must say. To rule from a good chunk of the 20th century and a decent bit of the 21st, long run. I was surprised. I thought it was that was a bit of a meme that someone posted. I'm like, there's no way. And then I checked and I go, oh no, she actually did. All right. Oh, that's unfortunate. But no, condolences, of course. Hearts go out to the royal family. Even though I may be an American, I do respect my British allies. Great people, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about some racing, and top spot has been taken by Renato Dornelis, a 35.24. The Brazilian back out again in full swing here. He is picking up right where he left off. I mean, one of the best drivers in the Sprint Series, and he shows it week in and week out. Other notable names here, Thomas Pierce, of course, number 2 on the grid, or number 2 on the practice poll here with a 35.44 right now. We got Kenneth Portis here sitting in a lowly P7 Only a 35.9 for him. And right behind that, of course, my co-commentator. Oh, no, sorry. Not my co-commentator. Jonathan Clifford. My apologies. A 36.11 for him. Flomger P3. We got Carpenter P4. Michael Landry in P5. And then we got Frizza way up in 6. So he has definitely been putting in the hours here. This is one track that seems to have polarized the community a little bit. Some drivers like it. Some drivers don't. I unfortunately have not had the chance to run this circuit. I have been doing productive things and unproductive things in my time. But I hope to someday hop back on it. I'm kind of hoping to pop into the European Sprint Series so I can get some time to race, but honestly, if I had to settle for like the Rookie Series, that might be a bit more my speed. You know how us commentators are. But yes, hopefully back behind the wheel soon. And behind the wheel is Braden Thompson, P12 right now in free practice. 36.5 for him. That is only, believe it or not, that is actually 200ths. Or actually, sorry, it's 100th behind Thomas Dagg, who has a 51. So those two probably going to be going at it here in the race. This track is definitely split into these fast front straights. Or the front straight and the back straight. The back straight kind of reminds me of Sebring in a way. I don't know if anyone else is like that, but I look at it and I go, yeah, it's Sebring. So we should see cars like the Audis and the Ferraris and the Hondas even really excel at that portion of the track. We saw it a lot in the EU race, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw it in the NA race. And then sectors 1 and 3, if we actually do pull up the track map here. So sectors 1 and 3, very, very... Even the tail end of Sector 2, you could say. It's very technical. You got some mid to low speed corners, heavy braking zones. So cars that handle a bit better on those portions will absolutely shine through. I know the BMWs are pretty good at that, as well as Porsche, but Porsche is not here tonight. So we don't have to worry too much about that. But for right now, Chris Frizza doing a little bit of drift action here. Let's see, he finds his way around. The last minute and a half, most drivers getting back into the pits, maybe just making a couple of setup changes and saving them for later. As, well, we are going to be going into qualifying soon enough. In the EU race, the track started off as greasy and then went to fast and then didn't really change. And we saw some pretty decent times come out of everybody, but nothing too crazy. It wasn't until we actually got into the race where the track was optimum like it is right now, and we saw some very, very fast times, especially from Felgen, of all people, who was up at the front all day, every day, it felt like. So hopefully we see that as well in the broadcast. And I forgot to say at the start, if you're joining us wherever you may be joining us in the world from, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, glad to have you. And thank you for stopping in for some more Octane Online Racing action here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We talked about this in the previous broadcast. Well, I mentioned it. I was like, you know, what if we just took the oval and just put these cars on it? What would happen then? It's probably never going to happen, and you know what? I am perfectly content with that. I will live to race another day. I could always go into like something like Assetto Corsa and do it there. Automobilista, I think, is in that game. I know it's in iRacing, but that's neither here nor there. Right now, we are at the end of free practice. Skylar Loverink in P11 is on an improvement of a little over half a second. So this would surely put her probably in 8th place, pushing Kevin down one position. AMS2 ovals is proper fun. Well, JC, I will definitely have to take your word on that and try it out someday. So we'll stay with Loverink here as we get to the end of free practice. Right now, just snaking away up to the end of Sector 2. We got baited a little bit in the broadcast earlier. You go onto the banking here, and you know it's like, oh, it's the front straight, but then you remember, oh wait, no, you just saw them come off of a different turn. It's not the front straight quite yet. I will say, Simon Bauer mentioned that he was a little disappointed that more of the oval wasn't used when you compare it to something like Daytona, where the oval is rather prominent, and you have quite a lot of fun time to just hold the throttle down. Loverink across the line, and I believe she popped way up the grid. I want to say top 5. I got to see this really quick. That was right at the end. P2, a 35.360, 1200th behind Renato Dornelis. That is an absolutely insane time. And look at this. We got 2 Audis on the way out, a BMW in tow, the 131 of Thomas Pierce. And you can see everybody's getting out. And who is it up at the front? Well, of course, it is Kenneth Portis, the man who always seems to be the first one out of the pit lane, followed by just about everybody else. So qualifying underway, optimum track conditions, so the lads and lasses in North American Corkscrew a little bit more fortunate than our European brethrens. So they'll be looking at putting up some of the fastest times here early on, getting those tires up to temp and up to pressure, and as well as the brakes. So we'll see what they can do. Of course, just because you're the first one out does not mean you're going to be the fastest. Parody, Rasco, Habe, and Carpenter still in the pits. Raworth was there a moment ago, but has just left the pit lane. The pit lane is somewhere where we will be seeing a lot of strategy develop. The amount of time you spend in that pit lane seems like an eternity, especially for how long it is. It just seems to go on and on and on, like an oasis in the desert. It just gets a little bit further and a little bit further, and you never quite get to the end of it. So this is a circuit where we're definitely going to be seeing quite a lot of strategy around overcuts and undercuts. Tire wear is also something that these drivers have to watch out for. This track is brutal on your tires, especially if you end up pitting a little too early. We did see it in the EU race. We had a driver, I believe it was Cuthbert, who went in early, and those tires were pretty shredded by the end. Now, he did go in a second time for fuel, but the tires were the main concern. So drivers definitely have to be careful to keep the rubber from getting too torn up. Obviously trying to pit in some cases at the halfway point. Some people go a little bit later than that, a little bit earlier. It's all really up to the drivers. But right now it is Kenneth Portis here who is going to set the benchmark for tonight's qualifying session. Behind him was the Lamborghini of Clifford, and then just behind them I believe is Landry. So the 1, 2, 3 for these drivers, and then everybody else will file on in, and that's when the real fun starts to go down, as tires and brakes get up to temperature and you start really seeing these lap times come to light. But yes, the story of the EU race was the Ferrari 1-3. It could have been a 1-2, but a couple of mistakes led to Parks not being able to stand close to the top step with his fellow driver Felgen. But still a 1-3 for Ferrari, something the F1 team is, well, unfortunately a little bit not familiar with, as it seems, with this season. But it's not F1, it's ACC. We don't gotta worry about all those silly regulations and this and that and the other thing. Right now, what we do have to worry about is what the baseline is gonna be here as Kenneth Portis comes out of the final corner and onto the front straight at Indianapolis. It's quite large of a front straight, but with those walls, it feels quite claustrophobic. So across the line, a 36.05 or 36.09 is the time to beat, and that is immediately vested by Landry, Pierce, and Flomger. Flomger with provisional pole, 35.47, Pierce at 35.7, and Landry at 35.9. So only a couple drivers in that 35 range. Obviously nothing set in stone, and of course, it is Renato Dornelis who is sitting on provisional pole, the 35.36 for him. Loverink throwing punches immediately, a 35.362 for her. It's an incredible start. 2 thousandths of a second off of Dornelis. That is a statement. That can show you just how much practice can pay off here at Indianapolis with just how new it is. Going in, pushing the limit, finding all the extra time, and going from there. But an incredible start from her. Austin Carpenter crossed the line for P5 right now. Thomas Pierce down to P4. Landry 6th. It's Portis who has unfortunately been demoted to 7th after the opening laps, but still is on an improvement. Jonathan Clifford down to 8th. Kevin Parody on P9 for the moment. It's Frizza in 10th. And then Thompson, Burke, and Raworth, your drivers, who are rounding out qualifying as of right now. Habe, Lewis, Dag have yet to set a lap, and Rasco does set his lap. P12 for him. Backerton, welcome to the stream, as well as Matt Powell. Howdy to you, my friend. Glad to have you, as always. Glad to have everybody here. Never a day goes by where we don't think you guys are the best, because you are the best. Right now, Renato Dornelis is on quite an improvement, 3/10. You better make it a 35.02 for him. That is a very strong time. Lovering here on the front straight across the brick. She's going to go, and it's only a 35.277. A little over a quarter second off of the Brazilian. Flomger in P3 has done a pretty good job of keeping things together. His best is still about 0.05 faster than his last lap. Jonathan Clifford in P4 for him. He's improved with a 1:35.525. Portis out of the pit, so he's improved to P5, so it looks like he's probably gone for some setup changes and is looking to make a statement. Austin Carpenter here has crossed the line for P6 at 35.702. Solid improvement from him. We got Mike Landry on a bit of an outlap right now, just letting people through. No big deal on that front. Sam Raworth as well. Just letting people through. Brian Rasco, 37.225 for him as he rounds the final corner onto this front straight. P14 right now with this improvement of a little over half a second. He should be finding himself a little further up the grid and only a couple places up into P12. Back it in. No, you are, sir. Excuse you. But yeah, we see Lovering in the pits as well for some setup changes. Clifford on his way out, so definitely some setup changes there for the 998 Lamborghini as he's coming out of the pits just now. We'll look around the grid here to see who's on an improvement. It's actually Braden Thompson. Car 14 back in P14. That seems to be a common trend with him, but you know what? He's consistent. But he's always surprised us, I feel like, for what he can do. So right now he is 0.8 up as he crosses the line. That is only going to put him up into P12. So 2-place improvement for him. Back out onto another flying lap, trying to find some time and trying to move a little further up the grid. Austin Carpenter out of the final corner in the McLaren. Car that's going to absolutely love these front straights. And that's a P4 for him, 35.41. You see Portis in the background, and just behind him is, I believe, Raworth. So Raworth is going to be starting another lap. He has set a time of a 38.8, and looks like with that 3:32 last lap, that was a pit lap. So he'll be looking to get back out there and get a much more competitive time. Jake Lewis, driver we have not talked about quite yet, certainly down in P15, a 37.18. Finds himself a couple tenths up, so if he can stitch this one together nicely, this may actually be a position over Leon Burke, who sits in his way for P14. But if he gets it just right, he could potentially knock both Audis down a position and take that P13 out from under Rasco. But he's got quite a big ask to do as we see Leon Burke, or sorry, that was not Leon Burke, it was Braden Thompson making an improvement. So across the line Lewis goes and will stay in P15, a 1:36.75, not enough. Unfortunately, looks like he may have lost a couple of tenths later on in the lap. Benjamin Habe, P16 at the moment, a 37.58. Half-second improvement will hopefully put him into the 36s, but not enough to overtake Lewis, and that it does, just barely, a 36.987. So rather close. Renato Dornelis at 1:34.620 while we were busy looking at everybody else. That is a monster of a time. Absolutely insanely quick from him. That is a very tough time to beat. Flomger is behind almost half a second, and then Lovering just a little bit over that half-second margin in P3. And then it's Carpenter P4, a little over 3/4 back, and Clifford in a very comfortable and commanding P5 right now. Almost a second back. Portis as well, almost a second back. And then beyond that, you tip over the 1 second barrier. Still a little under 5 minutes to go here in qualifying. Still plenty of time to, well, chop down on your lap time. Skylar Lovefrank showing us that right now, as she is about 2/10 up on her personal best. And if she can find a little bit more time, she could take Flomger's P2 right out of his hands. See, she's trying to push that car as much as humanly possible. Try to gain all the time she can through the tail end here of this third sector. Very technical, very difficult to get just right, and it looks like she has unfortunately lost a 10th as I get some strange interference. Probably part of my computer blowing up. Only a 10th improvement, unfortunately, a 35-12. Still about 600ths off, but that puts her exactly half a second behind Dornelis, who is currently out on track, getting an outlap going. So we'll see what he can do. Braden Thompson still sticking with that P12 right now. No one has really challenged his spot below him. Finds himself 2/10 up. So if he can put it together quite nicely, this could potentially be a top 10 start for the amateur class driver, which would put him above Kevin Parody in amateur class, as well as BMW. But then you look quite up the grid, and, well, there's Flomger sitting in P2 right now. It's currently the German manufacturers with a front row lockout. Braden Thompson, 2/10 as he dips onto the grass. I don't know if that's going to count, but it's definitely going to lose him some time. The question is, how much time has he lost? Looks like not a lot, actually. He gained a 10th, but definitely lost it as he was getting off the grass. So we'll see if that lap counts. I'm not quite certain as to how strict the track limits are here at Indianapolis, but we won't have to wait too long to figure that one out. Across the line, Thompson goes, and it is going to be a P9. He's going to push Parody out of the top 10 and put Dag in quite a precarious situation. That is quite a statement there from the amateur class driver, really finding a stride there in that lap. Thomas Dag, though, is getting to the end of his current lap. This could be a 35-9, but it is going to be borderline as he finds himself less than a 10th down across the line. He will not improve his lap time. 2 minutes to go, however, so it should not be too much to ask of him to get one more good lap in, try to overtake Thompson, who does go back into the pits. Should be done for him unless he's making a quick adjustment, and then heading back out onto circuit. Thomas Pierce, P8 for him, finds himself a little over half a second, and up he goes into P2, overtaking pretty much everybody except, of course, Dornelis, who we do see in the background, who just improved his fastest lap, a 34.48. This man currently in a league of his own. Not quite the same league as we saw with Felgen over the European split, but at this point, you might as well be in the same house as him. Over half a second from the next closest driver. Absolute domination from the Brazilian. Chris Frizza, P12. He got knocked around a little bit. Finds himself a 10th or 2 up as he heads on to this front straight again. This could put him into the top 10. And it will. Dag gets pushed out. Thompson now sitting outside that top 10. That is a very solid result for an amateur class driver, Braden Thompson. More often than not, we don't see the amateur class drivers that high up. But then again, well, maybe they've heard us talk about that and decided that they were going to no-life the track for a while, which in that case, I respect. Timothy Flomger across the line to P2. He's going to overtake Loverink, who got that position away almost half a second behind Ornelas. Still a little closer than everyone else, but still quite a ways off. Loverink has a 500th advantage over Pierce. So it looks like this not top 5. Looks like from second all the way to 4th is going to be quite hotly contested, especially once this race goes live. Then things are really going to kick off. Jake Lewis here, P15, 36, 755. is 3/10 up. If he can get the rest of this lap just right and make that improvement stick, he will definitely be moving up the order. But unfortunately, it looks like he went a bit wide and lost his lap. So he will unfortunately have to start in P15. So we look out over the landscape of Indianapolis. Right now, Chris Frizza is on an improvement. I don't know if it's going to be enough to overtake Landry's P8, but it'll certainly give him a bit more breathing room to Thompson and even Dag as he crosses the line, and he will not improve 200ths behind the McLaren of Landry. And then in the background, we do see the Audi and the Ferrari across the line. Lovrink stays P3, the Audi of Rasco. Does not get to move up the grid. And there's Kenneth Portis out of the final corner. He is not going to improve as well. The BMW behind him of Flomger is not improvable as well, unfortunately. So a few more drivers still out on track. And that looks to be Thomas Pierce, who has not gotten any time. He's running even with his previous best. And I see Dornelis' delta sort of fluctuating. Wondering if he's gaining anything anywhere. So Thomas Pierce crosses the line, currently P4, and he is going to stay P4. So Renato Dornelis taking yet another pole position. Almost half a second up on the competition. Quite a statement there from him, as Pierce wants to go onto the oval. But sir, there's a wall right there. You are not going to be as lucky. So we look to the grid now for the start of this sprint race here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. No safety car again. We did not have one in the EU race, so we had to run a bit of a virtual safety car. But hopefully this time around we don't have to use it. But we'll take a good look at the grid. But Dornelis, I mean, what a statement from him. Almost half a second up on the competition. So 2 and 3 and 4 are going to basically be the place to be. And then beyond that, it could be anybody's game. So we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on all of that as we get ready for an hour here at Indianapolis. Very solid lineup. 16 cars on the grid. Or sorry, 17 actually. Slight miscount. And we get ready once again for another round here. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the North Americans can do a bit better than Europe did at this race, or at this track earlier today, just about 6 hours ago. Actually, no, it's more about 5. Was it? I don't know. Yeah, it was 5.5 hours ago. One thing I always get is the times get mixed up a little bit, because some get pushed forward, some get pushed backwards. I also learned today that apparently the replay functionality we have here with the broadcast controller, if I look at a replay manually and I slow it down, if I ever want to replay something again, it's going to be slowed down until I go back into the replay and turn it back up. That was a fun thing. But yeah, everybody right now is finalizing their setups, making sure they have the proper fuel load, strategizing when they need to pit, so that way they can get out there and try to get the best result they can. It's going to be a German lockout of the front row. Dornelis and Flomger, Audi and BMW respectively, and behind them it's going to be Lovrink getting split from the Italian compatriot of Clifford by, well, none other than Thomas Pierce and, believe it or not, German manufacturers. And then Kenneth Portis, P6 for Honda, and then it is 7 and 8 for the McLarens of Carpenter and Landry, Frizza 9, and Thompson squeaking into the P10 over Dag, who's down 11th, and Parity, Berg, Rasco, Lewis, Habe, and Raworth, 12 to 17. Ladies and gentlemen, 10 seconds to go here before race starts. You hit that start button, or you are going to be starting from the pit lane. Everybody off the jacks and ready to go. So Dornelis will act as the safety car, pulls away here at the start, everyone else in tow. So we'll be going single file for most of this lap, and then the race director will go over the mic and tell them that it's time to go double file, and at that point, it's time to hold your breath. The silence will fall over the racetrack, and these drivers will get ready for an hour of racing ahead of them. One mandatory pit stop, of course. Pit window opens 5 minutes into the race and closes 5 minutes prior to the end of the session. So these drivers are going to be sizing it up, trying to figure out when the best time to pit is going to be as they all make their way through. Here once again, since Landry's out of the pits, of course he's out of the pits. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how these drivers manage their tires as this race goes on. It is definitely a bit tricky at times, especially with how demanding this circuit is. But we get ready here. This driver is currently finding themselves towards the start of Sector 3, and I believe crossing into it right about now. So we should be seeing drivers going double file before the pit lane. And in fact, we are going double file right now, it looks like. So we get ready for the chaos to unfold here at Indianapolis. Drivers are going to have to move around a little bit, catch up with each other. With Dornelis on pole. Inside line, especially for turn 1, a very heavy braking zone. And one that is absolutely crucial to get right. But ladies and gentlemen, around the final corner they go. An hour of racing ahead of us here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Renato Dornelis taking another pole position here at a track that he and his car clearly favor, and it's green, green, green as an excellent getaway for the BMW driver as we go down into turn 1. We got 3 wide here between Audi, BMW, Ferrari into turn 1. Loverig actually losing positions. Portis got an incredible launch at the start. A bit later on the brakes there for Dornelis, trying to get anything he can, and through turn 1 we go. 2 wide and 3 wide in the background, and no banging to be found. A couple bumps and bruises here and there, but nothing to really complain about. Dornelis getting an excellent start. Down the inside is going to be Clifford in the background onto the McLaren of, it looks like, Carpenter. And behind him is Portis and Landry fighting for position. But an excellent start from all of these drivers, getting single file already. Kevin Parody under attack there from the Lamborghini of Habe, who is just jumping up the grid right now. An excellent start there for the amateur class driver. Or sorry, the Pro-Am driver. But it has been a very good start there from Dornelis. Look out the back, we see this train of cars lining up already. You can see the gap he's already pulled to Pierce. He knows that Pierce is going to have to worry about Loverank. Loverank having to worry about Flamber, who's opened up that gap down to Clifford. So a bit of breathing room right now. 2, 3, and 4, we said it at the start of the broadcast. This is going to be the battlegrounds here for Indianapolis. And it's already looking like something that we should be keeping an eye on as these drivers go down into the heavy braking zone here. A 90-degree right-hander. You got to brake even before those distance markers. So we go into Helicam. Kenneth Portis right now, P7. Landry trying to find some time. These two cars, ones that excel quite well here on this front straight. The Honda, definitely we saw it a lot in the European race as we head down to start another lap. Of course, it is still going to be Dornelis up ahead, way up ahead it feels like, in the lead. And we can see everybody else just piling down through that start-finish straight. Skylar Loverank right on board, the number 52, trying to find all the time she can. Slightly different line than the Audi, as those two drivers actually won too. It's Flammer who lost out quite a bit from P2 all the way down to P4 at the start. Loverank didn't really move anywhere, just sort of stayed put and picked up a position where she could onto this back straight, very reminiscent of Sebring. These drivers are now going to be getting into the rhythm get into what's happening in the background is actually going to be the Lamborghini of Habe and the Audi of the 558 of Leon Burks. We're going to roll this one back. We're going to see what happens here as we go into Helicam. Oh, looks like Habe just got out of that corner incorrectly. The car oversteering, that back end stepping out, and unfortunately Burke, an innocent bystander in all of this, and ends up quite a ways down in the grid. Although he does find himself at the back, and Sam Raworth getting promoted a couple of positions up. Not the start you want, but it is the start that they are going to get. Welcome, Hamster. No, there was no moistness at all, and it doesn't look like that is going to happen either. None in qualifying, none anywhere else. Right now, Clifford starting to feel the heat from Carpenter. He's going to go defensive, make him work around the outside. Into turn one, they go door to door, and Carpenter going to hold it. He's going to keep his nerves under control and actually gets the move done. He was outside for turn one, but inside turn two. An excellent job from him, and that's even going to invite Portis into the party. So Portis now on the back end of the Lamborghini. He's going to wait for that backstretch and definitely use all the horsepower under the Honda to try and overtake, and especially with that slipstream. Clifford's going to be a sitting duck, and just behind that is Carpenter. So two of the fastest cars here on this track. It's going to be a bit of an issue. But speaking of issues, Kenneth Portis having to deal with Landry, who's gotten the corner a little bit better than he could have. As we head down the back straight. So it looks like Portis not close enough to really go for a move, but still maintaining. Back up front, it's Loverink, who's lost a good bit of time to Pierce, about 3/4 of a second, and Flomger is trying to make up this position that he lost early on at the start. But still 55 minutes to go. Pit lane will open in 20 seconds. So if drivers need to pit, now would be the time. Thomas Dagg here having to deal with fellow Audi driver Brian Rasco. This is for P11. As these two drivers onto the front straight. Audi, again, a car that just does really well here, has the top end and the acceleration to make this front straight and back straight work. Rasco just peering to the inside, but slots back into place. He is not going to even attempt something like that. Michael Landry with Frizza behind. Frizza doing an excellent job right now, trying to gain any time he can, using every inch of the road, every bit of the power under the hood, using the slipstream as well, and just how quick the Ferrari can be in a straight line. As we head onto the back straight, looks like he didn't get it too well. He's actually going to end up losing time as Landry gets an insanely good exit. Although he has lost time to Portis. Portis trying to catch up to the cars ahead of him, and then up ahead of that is Loverink and Flomger sort of on their own. Some dust getting kicked up. Drivers can use as much track as this game will let them have. And it's surprising how much it does give them at times. It is quite a lot, it feels like. Yeah, maybe a bit of a nice middle ground. You have Watkins Glen where you really get to have a suggestion of track limits, and then at Coda it's very strict, so Indianapolis is probably the nice middle ground for these drivers, and something they definitely do enjoy. But the race has started to settle down now. Brian Rasco has lost time to Thomas Dagg at some point, and that's going to pull parity in a lot closer now. About half a second between these two. Onto the front straight we go. But it is the Audi. Very fast in a straight line. And definitely on display right now. Loverink just continually losing time to Flomger. Just little bits here and there. Last lap for Loverink at 35.8. 35.86. Flomger at 35.76. So a tenth between the two. Loverink trying to just open up a gap where she can. Flomger thought about a move down the inside, but the door wasn't quite open. It was slightly ajar, but nothing you could really throw the body through on the backstretch. And you can see the Ferrari really just stretching its legs here, starting to pull away. Even with the slipstream, Flomger is struggling to stay up, or struggling to catch up right now. But even with these, even with that sort of advantage Loverink gets, these slower, twisty sections that seem to be doing the Ferrari in a little bit. and that's where the time is lost. It appears as though we have lost Benjamin Habe. Perhaps spinning out, parking it up. Unfortunate to see, but he'll definitely be getting ready for next week at Paul Ricard to cap off season 10. Kenneth Portis has been losing time to Clifford. That gap opening up, and Landry managing to keep up with him at the very least. Obviously not gaining, but not losing time either. Oh, JC. You poor man. Brian Rasco still with parity in his rear view, and it actually looks like Thompson has caught up a good bit. Still nobody close enough for a move. So we head down into turn 1 once again. So it looks like a lot of these battle packs, as I'm going to call them, are starting to form. No one's really going for a move quite yet, but will in probably the next 10-15 minutes or so, especially once pit stops come through and the field gets shuffled around a little bit. We should see some changes and a lot closer battles. It is important right now to really gauge your opponent. You know, how fast are they? Do you pit before them? Do you pit after them? Do you pit at the same time as them? The problem, though, is making sure that you actually hit all your marks in the pit lane. We had it happen a little bit in the EU split. Drivers overshooting their pit box, but managing to get back out at least close to their opposition, but you know, you want to be ahead of them. So it'll be interesting to see what can happen. We should not be seeing pit stops coming through quite yet, although tire wear is definitely starting to be felt by these drivers, if even a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see drivers pitting in the next maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Anything beyond the half-hour mark will definitely be quite a sight to behold. We did have a couple drivers go quite long on their stints, and it was impressive to see, especially with just how much grip they didn't have compared to the start of their stints. But you know, we're not here to strategize. We're not here to strategize for these drivers. We're here to more hypothesize and strategize. Landry a little bit later on the brakes. They're going to catch up with Portis, and just like that, he is going to be completely ran away from. Portis on the power down this back straight, and ahead of him is Clifford. So Clifford's fallen off from Carpenter a fair bit. He was quite close behind a while ago, and Carpenter as well, falling off of Flomger Loverink. That BMW is looking quite fiery. So we head on to the oval for just a short moment before getting off of it hard onto the brakes. A little before, right at that 300 board. Down to the slow right, left hand corner. And then you're back onto the front straight again. Last lap for Loverink. We'll see what it is as we cross the line. It's going to be a 35.5 for the Ferrari, a 35.4 for the BMW. So again, just that 10th, but nothing really being converted off of it. And speaking of conversion, right now, Parity looks like he's got a little bit of rear damage there as he goes door to door down the front straight here with Thompson in tow. Thompson on that inside line as we go down. Parity a little bit later on the brakes, trying to make it hang around the outside. They come together, and Thompson is gonna just fall back, and Parity will hold on to this P13. For the time being, we're gonna see if maybe there's a little bit of damage on the front end, or on the back end, excuse me, of that BMW. Doesn't look like it. It's perhaps just the sun reflecting off. But a very good little battle for these two. Looks like some front end damage actually for Parity, just a couple scrapes, but nothing that should be hurting performance. So this is definitely something we're going to keep an eye on. And we actually have Clifford, who seems to have brought a little train of fish behind him with Portis, Landry, and even Frizza. Slowly gaining, of course, over these last couple of laps. You can see Frizza just in the background there, trying to catch up as best he can. Clifford using every bit of that Lamborghini to try and pull away. Portis not really having the same sort of worry. He knows how quick this Honda is. And behind him, Landry and Frizza as well know the speed of their machines. Going to use that to their advantage. Onto the front straight we go. Close enough for a slipstream from Portis, but the question is, how much is he going to get? And it appears as though he is not going to get too much. He's going to get a bit closer, but anything down into turn 1 would be quite foolish. So for right now, Clifford maintaining P6, Portis 7, Landry 8th, and Frizza 9th. Jake Lewis, unfortunately, who was in a bit of a no man's land right now, is having to worry about Thomas Dagg behind as they go through 2 and 3 here and down into 4. Lewis currently standing atop the entire amateur class, and a P10 for him right now, but it is going to be quite the ask to keep that until the very end of the race. Definitely something that takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy, but I have faith in him. I think Jake has it in him. If he can play his cards right, get the correct strategy, and maybe a little bit of luck, he could be seeing a top 10 finish here at Indy. Back up again with Clifford, who is just struggling to pull away, and Frizza is actually struggling to catch up now, so he's lost quite a bit of time. As Landry's going to give us a nice little overview right now, and just up ahead there you see Carpenter in the bright pink McLaren onto the front straight. Getting this line right is crucial. We've seen it in qualifying, we've seen it lap after lap with these drivers. Try to get the car as wide as you can without touching the wall. On to turn 1, you do get all the way up to 6th gear. Oh, and a bit of a tap there on Landry, or a bit of a tap onto Portis from Landry. Looks like he may have missed his brake point just a tad. And that'll give Frizza a chance to catch up, something he is very happy to have happen and get thrown his way. Portis does not seem to have lost any momentum. If anything, that push may have given him a little something to catch up with Carpenter. Carpenter is second off of Flomger. Right now, Landry, though, he is really starting to feel the pressure there from Frizza. A lot closer than he was before. All that work to get away has been squandered through his own slight misjudgment. And Frizza, with that toe, opts to just lift off the throttle before going into that braking zone and falling back into position over those sausage curbs. They always get a little shaky when going over sausage curbs or watching someone do it. Is, you know, you don't know if they're going to spin out or if they're going to get launched. Why we have them, I don't know. Loverink, we got to hop back up very quick, as she has been struggling to get away from Flomger. It's another case of that 1/10 of a second, but it never really goes anywhere. It seems like if Loverink's lap is down by a 1/10, then her next lap has to be up by a 1/10, and that's exactly what's happened. A 35.4 for Loverink, a 35.5 for Flomger. Last lap she had a 35.6, and Flomger had a 35.5. So this is just, yeah, she gets a 1/10 here, loses a 1/10, and then gets back again. But at the same time, she's maintaining that balance, maintaining that equilibrium, and if you're her, that's very good. Clifford has pulled away, though, from Portis. Done a very solid job keeping things in line. And Landry seems to have sort of settled into his position. He's gotten a bit of a gap opened up to Frizza, but really nothing too crazy. On the back straight. So Landry with Frizza a little bit closer, but again, even with that slipstream, just cannot catch up, cannot overtake, and has to just continue sitting behind, which for him is quite unfortunate. Everything you do just sort of squash, sort of like what we see with Loverink and Flomger. A 1/10 up one lap, but you're going to be a 1/10 down the next lap, and there's not much you can really do about it besides try to figure out where exactly you are going wrong. So we'll keep an eye here, of course, keeping an eye all over the place. Dornelis, He is a little over 6 seconds ahead of Thomas Pierce. Does have the fastest lap with a 34.8. So the Brazilian absolutely on fire right now. No problems for him. Done an amazing job of keeping that pole position to himself. But of course, still 42 minutes to go. Anything can happen. And as a reminder, we will be joined later on in the broadcast by Kevin Parody and Sam Raworth. They just got to get through their race, of course, and then usually the post-race formalities, and then into the booth. And it'll be a 3-man party for the Druids split. And speaking of Parody, in fact, Thompson's done a pretty good job of catching back up. Thompson's last lap, a 36.5. Parody's at 36.7, so 2/10 between them. And you're looking at about a 4/10, almost half-second gap. This is, you can see even with the same car, there's slightly different lines between them. A little bit wider here, a little bit more narrow there. And setups have to be a little bit different as well. I know there's usually a general sort of overview of, you know, what you should do with a certain car on a certain track, but you always end up making just a few adjustments here and there to try and make things a bit easier on you. Everyone's driving style is different. And that's a very good showcase right now. Same machinery, slightly different setups and different skill levels, but still can be an exciting and interesting race, or even battle to look at. But you can see the front of Parody's car. A little banged up. Perhaps kissing the rear of Rasco. So things have definitely settled down. Drivers are in that sort of hot lap mentality. Not really close enough to go for a move, but not quite far away enough to, you know, really stop worrying. They do have to keep in mind the driver behind, but for right now it's more just get these laps going and get ready for that pit stop. 35 minutes on that pit stop window and 40 left on the clock. So as long as drivers get a pit stop in the next 35 minutes, well, they will not be penalized. It's always the name of the game here. Avoid those penalties with that new driver system that we have in place for this season. With license points and everything, avoiding penalties is crucial. Well, we jump back down here to P13 with Parody and Thompson. These two drivers definitely getting very comfortable with themselves. Last lap for Parody was a 36.8. Thompson walked away with a 37.1. So this is sort of the same thing we're seeing with these two BMW drivers as we're seeing with Loverink and Flomger. You know, you're faster one lap, but you're going to be slower the next. And unfortunately, that does not help your cause at all. Kenneth Portis here in P7 for him. Landry's still behind, still just creeping in the shadows, waiting for a mistake. This is one of the tracks that Simon Bauer mentioned where overtaking can be a bit difficult, but all it takes is one mistake, and it'll be a bit of a miracle if you manage to hold on to that place. Down into turn one. Landry a good bit closer now. 36.2 for Portis, 35.5 for Landry. So Portis must have made a slight error. Not enough to get overtaken, but enough to bring the McLaren a bit closer. So we see Clifford leading them as well. Frizza has fallen off of Landry again. So it looks like Frizza will be eyeing up a pit stop to be an overtaking factor here, as he knows he doesn't have enough pace to overtake the 710 McLaren, but perhaps if he gets lucky, it'll be Landry coming out into traffic, and that'll buy him just enough time to gain a better position than his opponent. Loverink here. Flomger's doing an amazing job just holding on and just keeping the Ferrari reeled in. A slightly more inside line, trying to get a straighter exit, but it doesn't seem to matter. A little bit of oversteer, but nothing he can't correct. Onto the front straight in the slipstream, but you can see that Ferrari, just all the acceleration and top end under the hood, nothing Flomger can do. He's going to be banking on sectors 1 and 3 to catch up. Go from there. Perhaps get a move done prior to the overtake. And speaking of overtakes, Braden Thompson, we're going to roll this one back and actually see what happens. So it looks like Parity actually overshoots his break point and goes a bit wide. Braden Thompson saying, thank you very much. I will gladly have that P13. You clearly are not using it. And now Thompson is going to try to start a gap, or try to start to build that gap. Just sat behind and waited. That's what we talked about. One mistake is all it takes for you to lose your position. And now Parity has to do all the work that Thompson was doing lap after lap to try to catch up. But the question is going to be, does Parity have it in the cards for Thompson to make a mistake, or is he going to have to do it the old-fashioned way? Skylar Loverank still dealing with Flomger. Jonathan Clifford is bringing Portis a bit closer, and Portis actually opening up a gap to Landry by a little bit each lap, it looks like. Onto the oval for just a moment, and then into the infield. But Jonathan Clifford just trying to pull away, and it looks like he actually might be a little bit as we exit the final corner. Nobody has gone into the pits quite yet. 25 minutes have passed, still 35 to go, so we should be seeing cars coming into the pit within the next 5 minutes. And anything beyond that, if we still go all the way past that 5-minute mark without a single pit stop, I will be very, very surprised. Ooh, Loverank. Looks like she's starting to struggle a little bit. That tire wear coming into play, and even for Flomger as he dips his wheels onto the grass there. Kicking up some dirt, but maintaining what he's got. Oh, and he actually overshoots a little bit. Oh, yeah, those tires definitely starting to hurt, so Flomger has to make a decision. Does he stick with Loverank and try to reel her in, or does he just go for the pits? Get some fresh rubber on that BMW and get back out there and try to make up some time. Jake Lewis has managed to keep Dag behind for the time being. 36.7 for him his last lap. Dag's a 36.6. So another case of just being a 10th faster, but with this lap we'll have to see if it goes back the other way, if we can keep the little seesaw going. On top though, it is still Dornelis, 34.8 seconds. His personal best and fastest lap here for this Corkscrew split. Kenneth Portis has maintained about a half second or so, a little bit more, a little bit less here to Clifford, who also maintains the same distance to Carpenter. To Landry it is. And then you see Carpenter right there, bottom of shot. Has a nice 5-second or so gap to the drivers behind. I don't know if it's just me, but 2:30 in game at Indianapolis is oddly dark. I don't know if it's the clouds. It might be. Looks like the clouds are rolling in. I don't know if that's going to be a sign of things to come, but who knows. What we do know right now is Brian Rasco is going to be the first of the drivers to pit. So perhaps realizing that he has a better chance later on of getting a better result if he pits a bit earlier than everyone else. So he will be coming out in last place, but he will have everybody else to get through, or everyone else's pit stop to get through. The pit lane, we'll see it again at some point. We'll try to focus on the battles, of course. But the pit lane is incredibly long. Just goes on and on and on forever. And even from the line where you have to throw the pit limiter on, it can feel like such a long way back. You just drive all the way to your pit, stop the car, at least the minimum 30 seconds. And then you got to drive all the way back out, which feels to be about the same amount of time as a pit stop. And Brian Rasco, you can see just how long the little pit indicator on the right side of his little position here on the scoring pylon has been there. It is such a long pit lane, and just now he gets to the end of it. So, just one of those pit lanes where it just takes an incredibly long time. And, well, it was getting darker because the clouds have moved in. One begins to wonder if perhaps the heavens will open up. But for right now, drivers do not have to worry for at least the next 30 minutes. We're looking at cloudy skies unless a rogue storm system sneaks its way into the area. Oh, but Portis here just peeking to the inside, trying to scare Clifford off the line. Clifford not going to fall for that one quite easily. You got to try a lot harder than that. Nerves of steel on that man. Same with Landry trying to do a bit of mind games. He knows that Portis has to look at two directions at the same time. So definitely going to be using that to his advantage. A lot closer now, in fact. As we head through this inner complex. And into the pits actually goes Pierce. I don't know if that's going to be for an undercut attempt, but that is Renato Dornelis we're talking about up front in the lead. So Dornelis is probably seeing that and realizing he has got to put in quite the lap as Pierce comes to a stop just as we break shot. And it's actually Frizza into the pits, and behind him is going to be Jake Lewis, it looks like. Yes, it is. So yeah, about halfway through, drivers are going to start going for these pit stops. Hopefully Frizza has Guido as his mechanic. How many tires can you get off that quickly of a car? Up in the air, get the new ones on, and catch the rest. Based on a true story, and the true story for now remains as Clifford, Portis, and Landry locked in a sort of mini battle for what could be 5, 6, and 7. But these three are really just sort of doing their own thing right now. Braden Thompson also into the pits early on. Frizza just off the Jackson. You can see, if we just look out the front here, if I can click the right button, there we go. You can see just how long you're in the pit lane for. It just goes on forever. We'll leave it. You know what? We're not even going to look because right now Portis has lost time to Clifford. So perhaps maybe a bit of a mistake. No, Portis actually opting to go into the pits. Maybe he sees that Landry is going to be quicker later on, so he's going to get this pit stop done now. Same with Clifford. He knows how fast he is. Frizza out of the pits. Jake Lewis just now getting out of the pit lane, and Braden Thompson almost at the board. And he's out of the pit lane as well. And it looks like Dag into the pits. Yeah, Dag into the pits. Portis is boxed all the way up front. Normally, this pit lane has far more cars than we do in them right now, all getting tires and fuel in a very short amount of time. Things seem to have calmed down. See, Chris Frizza acting as a little bit of a blockage for these drivers who are a lap ahead of him, so he'll be getting blue flagged shortly, or if he hasn't already. Portis out of the pits. So the first half of the pit lane is dominated by pit box, and the last half is sort of just its own thing. Sam Raworth decides that now is a good time to get some fresh rubber on those tires. So he dives in. Renato Dornelis as well is ready to call it a day for this set of tires, get some new ones on, get back out there. So we'll see if Loverink does the same thing. She does, mirroring the Brazilian. Austin Carpenter here has to deal. You see Flomger there. Ooh, Frizza throwing a bit of a spanner in the works. Flomger lucky to not rear end the Ferrari. Austin Carpenter decides that now he goes in along with Clifford and Landry. So that would just leave Flomger, Parody, Burke as your only drivers that have yet to throw on a new set of wheels. And this will definitely shake things up. You can see everybody just like queuing up for a line at the grocery store. But in this case, it's going to be some tires. Kevin Parody into the pits. So that does leave Burke and Flomger, two drivers yet to go in, and Burke opting to stay out. So it is going to be very interesting to see who of this group is coming out and when. Dornelis already out there. Parity as well. Lovering just getting off the jacks now. And then Clifford, or no, sorry. Parity actually into the pit lane. Has yet to serve his mandatory stop. And then Burke as well. So Burke now into the pit lane. So that leaves Timothy Flomger as the lone driver out on track who is yet to go into the box. And hello to you, Wicked Sim Racing. Glad to have you, of course. We are just getting our pit stops done and dusted, and we'll see where everybody comes out afterwards. Flomger, will he go in? Yes, he will. So at this point, every single driver has pitted, and this should give Dornelis the lead back again. It looks like we're getting a break in the clouds now, so we should start seeing things brighten up a bit more. It's been a little bit dull color-wise. I think it's been someone's just taken the saturation filter and turned it down. But yeah, with how long this pit lane is, Flomger is gonna sit there for a while. It takes forever to get to the box. It takes forever to get out of there. And a stop-go for Kevin Parity speeding in the pit lane. That'll get transferred over to a 10-second penalty once the stewards get that one sorted. Not what you want here, especially in any race when it comes to these penalties that get applied. It's one thing to get it early on. It's another thing entirely to get it after your pit stop, because now you have to worry about that big red number above your head for the rest of the race. You gotta say, okay, how far am I from the guy behind? Am I in danger of losing this position? Can I push? Am I going to be able to open up that gap? Or will I just have to let this person go and worry about it? So Dornelis across the line will overtake from Flomger and Pierce as well. And Loverink should also be able to get a piece of this. So you can hear in the background, just barely. And there she goes. So Flomger coming out in P4. So now this is where things get a little bit dicey, because now you have drivers who may be faster than someone ahead of them but struggling to get around, and maybe drivers who end up unintentionally holding up traffic for somebody else. And that benefits. But Jake Lewis is holding on by a thread to this P10. Behind him is Dag and Rasco and Thompson. Dag darting to the inside line, but gonna slot back in. No problems there for him. Again, the McLaren and the Audi, two very strong cars here, especially on these straightaways. Full throttle, high acceleration, high top end, and onto the grass dips Lewis, trying to find any sort of time he can without losing it and without gaining an unfair advantage. Things like that happen all the time. It is nothing to complain about. These drivers know that very, very well. And onto the grass again goes Lewis. He is trying to push as much as he can, but the problem is he's pushing a little bit over the limit of that McLaren, and it is definitely a bit worrisome for him. Rasco has fallen off the pace of these two, and just behind that appears to be Braden Thompson there in P13. Yeah, this is definitely a tough track from what I've heard, Wicked. Not had the chance to drive it, unfortunately. I've been busy doing productive and unproductive things with my life. Unfortunately, sim racing was not part of the productive thing that I should have been doing. At least get some experience, so I know what I'm up against as I deal with this. Renato Dornelis thought maybe it was in a battle for a moment, but wasn't. Just getting around a back marker. But yeah, some of these drivers are insanely quick. Renato Dornelis still with that fast stop of 34.8. About 4/10 down from his qualifying time, if memory serves properly. But still, just an incredible lead for him. Absolutely no problems at all. Not quite the gap we saw in the European race with Felgen, but it is still a very impressive gap at the circuit. So it looks like the battle for P10 is probably where we're going to be. There's no one really threatening 1, 2, 3, 4. Appears as though P5, also something that's going to be brewing in a little bit. Portis and Carpenter sitting behind Clifford right now. Just trying to bang these laps out. Clifford's last lap, a 36.3, a 36.0 for Portis, and a 36.3 as well for Carpenter. So Portis definitely coming out the best here of this little trio. And behind them, Lewis's last lap was a 36.80 and a 36.88 for Dag. So 0.08 of a second. Again, we've seen this little tug-of-war seesaw with these drivers. You gain time on this lap, but you lose it again the next lap. But it was definitely something we saw with the European race. And you're all right, yeah, the end of the last few laps of 4, 5, and 6 were amazing. And hopefully we see the same thing here with these drivers. And then, of course, we do have the Druids split later on tonight after this race. We'll be joined by Kevin Parody and Sam Raworth. So we'll get some insight onto the circuit here in Indianapolis. A track that I do want to visit. I have a nice list of tracks I'd love to go and watch a race at, and this is definitely on it, mostly for the Indy 500. But I wouldn't mind, you know, an interior circuit race of this, as long as they use more of the oval than what we usually get, especially with Daytona. But we have to work with what we've got, and it is still a challenging circuit for these drivers. Nothing they can't handle. Jake Lewis in P10, still maintaining a gap to Dag and Rasco. You can just barely see Rasco there in the rear view of Dag. Last lap for Lewis was a 36.3, Dag a 36.7. So it looks like a bit of an error here for the Audi, and then Rasco's was a 36.6. So again, just the case of the seesaw. Gain time in this lap, lose it the next lap. It'll all even out by the end of it, it feels like, and it's definitely a very, very frustrating thing to do, because it seems like no matter what you do and you get all the corners right and you get all the gear shifts and your steering angles are perfect, you get nothing. And it's incredibly disheartening, and you try to find any time you can without overdriving the car, and it's something that takes a lot of time and a lot of experimentation to get just right. It's an art, and while all of these drivers are definitely artists that I would have no problem looking at in an exhibit of their best work. We hop back up here for P5 between Clifford, Portis, and Carpenter, and I believe Landry as well. Yes, Landry popping into this battle quite nicely. But all these drivers maintaining. 36.1 for Clifford, 35.9 for Portis, 36 dead for Carpenter, and a little wide there goes Clifford up ahead. Landry at 35.4. So drivers gaining on each other across this. This could just compress into a crazy battle for P5 by race end. If they keep it up, you can see Clifford trying to break the toe without weaving. Not something you want to do, and just the 3 cars behind him all just glancing to the inside, maybe thinking about a move. But you know that once you get the move done, you got to pull away. You got to keep the other guy behind. So perhaps they're staying behind and just waiting for the last couple of laps to make a move, and then from there you spring the trap. You try to go for the position and spend that last lap or two just trying to run away with it. Portis though losing time right now to Clifford. Last laps as they are. 36.5 for Clifford, 36.2 for Portis, 35.7 Carpenter, 35.8 for Landry. This is what we're talking about, that yo-yo effect, that seesaw. Gain time on this lap, lose it the next. And unfortunately, it looks like some of these drivers are losing out a lot more. Over the inside of the curb they go. Clifford doing everything he can to hold on. And the drivers behind doing everything they can to not only catch up, but to keep the other guy behind. But again, this is the track. We talked about it in the EU race earlier today. Sorry. Rest track. Hold on. We're good. Now, the EU race, we talked about it earlier. Simon Bauer saying that, this track is very difficult to overtake on. And you have to wait for a mistake from your opponents to try and capitalize. You see just how inside Clifford goes. An absolutely insanely inside line. Just to break, not only break the toe, but to just get onto the front straight sooner, maybe get the power down a bit earlier. But he has done a fantastic job so far. 16.5 to play here at Indianapolis for the Corkscrew split of the Octane Online Racing North American Sprint Series. And then a week off, or not a week off, and then a week until the final race of the season at Paul Ricard for the final super sprint of season 10 before we have about a month off, and then we hop back again for season 11. It'll be some exciting stuff. I do not know that Clifford had a channel. If you can tell me about it. Hold on, Carpenter. Wait a second. Carpenter's gotten that rather wrong. Looks like he missed his break point. Probably got bedazzled by the Buzz Lightyear mobile of Kenneth Portis. So he has lost all that time. Landry catching up, and if we look out the front, you can see Portis. No problem with that. He will gladly pull away and get out of Dodge as soon as he can. He is now only having to focus his energy on Clifford. Slightly different lines. Looks like Portis just overshooting it a little bit. Does not meet the apex quite as much as he would like. Onto the front straight we go. Look at that. You see Clifford way on the inside. Maybe banking on Portis. Going to the outside in a bit of an autopilot mode. We saw it in the last lap. But this time Portis aware of it. Last time around we crossed the start-finish line. It was Clifford who's got a 35.9 and a 35.8 for the Honda of Portis. So not quite the gap we saw the last time. And then Carpenter with a 36.2 and then a 36.4 for Landry. You got to remember, Carpenter made a mistake and just overshot his break point. And losing time out. Thankfully, didn't lose his car. But now all that work he's done has been erased. Especially with just how good Clifford and Portis are. I mean, these two are absolutely insanely good at what they do. So it's one thing to slowly but surely close that gap. It's another thing to maintain, and it's, well, the complete opposite when you end up just making a slight error. You got to do it all over again. Carpenter was slowly but surely chipping away at that lead that Portis had over him. And now with 14 minutes to go, he's got a lot of work to do and not a lot of time, it feels like, to get it done. So we are going to leave this one here for now. Thomas Dagg still hunting down Jake Lewis in P10, and behind him is Brian Rasco. Last lap for Lewis, a 36.6, a 37.0 for Dagg, a 36.6 as well for Rasco. Thomas Dagg most likely making an error, or maybe slightly having to take some avoiding action. Perhaps Jake Lewis maybe braked a bit earlier than he would have thought. But for right now, it's the McLaren who maintains that P10 from the double Audi threat of Dagg and Rasco. These two perhaps also waiting for the final lap to get a move done. 13 minutes on the clock here. Clifford still trying to pull away, and they're actually pulling up on Sam Raworth, so this will be the first back marker these guys have seen, if memory serves, this entire race. So Clifford's going to be looking to find a spot to get around Raworth, so that way it becomes an issue for the drivers behind. And he is going to be doing everything he can to close the gap, get around, and then leave Raworth as a bit of a road bump for those behind. Although most likely, if he's going to get around him, it would be at the front straight, which Raworth will definitely step to the side and let everyone else through, which for Clifford is not what you really want. So we'll look at that in a second. Dag has lost a pretty substantial amount of time here to Lewis. And Rasco has done a pretty good job of sticking here with his fellow Audi driver. Now we do have to just see this though. Onto the front straight. And you can see Raworth quite a ways ahead, I believe. Yeah, he is. Raworth is way ahead. So for right now, Clifford has to wait a little bit longer. Across the line, everybody goes. It's a 36-1 Clifford, 36-0 for Portis, 35-7 for Carpenter, and a 35-7 as well for Landry. So the two McLarens behind catching up here to the Honda. If you're Clifford, that's kind of what you're hoping for, because you know that they're going to start fighting, maybe defending a little bit harder into this corner, trying to get a better run out of that corner, and you're going to absolutely take advantage of that as long as you can build your gap up to those behind. And then by the time one of them gets around, well, you're already long gone, and you are no longer in danger. An incredibly wide line there for Carpenter as we go onto the back straight. The blue flag's out. Raworth in a very precarious situation as he is just going to go way off the line, sort of park it up and let everybody through. Not the cleanest of movements out of the way, but for these guys, they do not care. He's out of the way. He's out of their minds. He does not have to worry about a thing. Raworth going to get right back out there and into the running. These four are doing an amazing job of keeping it extremely close. Clifford has had parity, or Portis, reeled in just a little bit. And behind them, Carpenter and Landry maybe starting to strategize a little bit. Maybe saying, hey, you know what? We can work together, and we can make this work. We can catch up. But the slipstream here not really having the greatest effect. Landry, just a side glance on that inside line. Getting right back into line. No problem for him. Clifford still everything he can to open up a gap. Last lap times 36-1 for Clifford, 36-2 for Portis, 36-7 for Carpenter to 36-1 for Landry. And you can see the gap there between the McLaren and the Honda has opened up a fair bit. So this could be a fractured battle. Battle for P5 and for P7. Barring some sort of very, very strange happening. And then Jake Lewis right here has done a pretty good job of pulling away from Rasco and Dag. Last lap for Lewis was a 36-4, Dag a 36-3, and a 36-4 as well for Rasco. So perhaps Rasco is making a little bit of a little few mistakes here and there, and just having some trouble getting around, or pulling away rather, from his 135 Audi pseudo teammate, if you want to call it. They are in the same car, but yeah, everything he can, and it's just Lewis who pulls away, and pulling away is going to be Clifford actually. And Portis here has also done the same. He's sort of in no man's land right now. He's not really getting a slipstream from Clifford, but he's not really giving one to Carpenter as well. Carpenter, though, is giving Landry a bit of a tow as we go up the main straight here. Down into turn one. I always, whenever cars go through turn one and there's that little bump, I always think they're losing the back end of the car, but it's just the way of the track and how the car reacts. But this has been a slow burn of a battle. Nobody's going for a move quite yet. They see that there's 8 minutes to go. They know they can just sit back and wait. They don't have to do anything drastic. They don't have to do anything irrational. Just sit back, wait for those last few minutes, and then maybe go for a move. It's all gonna be unfolded later on. And unfolding is Rasco's plans to catch up to Lewis as he gets a little bit squirrely there. as he heads onto the back straight, and that'll give Dag a chance to actually catch up. You can see just how close Dag is. The inside line is going to be Rasco's as they go door to door here at the end of the straight. Oh, barely a little bump and rub there on the inside, and Dag, a very valiant attempt to make that move stick. But the inside defense there from Rasco, top notch, and is able to maintain his P11. But that has given Jake Lewis exactly what he wants. You can see the gap there that has been opened up as he misses the apex, but that doesn't matter. He knows those two are going to fight, so if Jake Lewis can keep it together, he's going to be looking at a very comfortable finish. Skylar Lovering, someone we haven't really been paying attention to all that much, is now 2/10, 3/10 ahead of Flomger, and behind that is Jonathan Clifford and Kenneth Portis. So we got battles all over the place right now. Same with Carpenter and Landry. That's going to be the battle for P7. We head into the last few laps. 6.5 minutes to go here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the North American Corkscrew Split here in the Sprint Series, and things are starting to heat up right at the end. This is exactly what we were hoping for. We saw it in the EU race, and you can bet your bottom dollar we're going to see it here in North America. Brian Rasco starting to reopen his gap to Dag, exactly what he wanted. Their lap only 2/10 difference. Rasco losing out on that. Or no, sorry, they had almost the exact same 700 or 7,000ths between the two. So for them, that is quite close. That was even with a bit of contact and some over braking, but nothing too crazy. Skylar Loverink, 6/10 up on Flomger. She had a 2/10 gap at one point, but has managed to find some time somehow, some way. But she'll definitely take it. So Jake Lewis doing an incredible job right now. Just really, really getting some breathing room here. Almost 3 seconds to the drivers behind. We got to pop back up here. The battle for P5. I can't tell if it's going to be a battle for P5 or a battle for P7, or they're all going to get together and make it a battle of the ages, as we are about to tick under 5 minutes. And that pit window will close. We had a yellow flag briefly. And here it is. Skylar Loverink with the Audi of Burke up ahead. This is going to be blue flagged for sure. And here we go. And just behind them, it is the battle 5, 6, 7, and 8. So if you're looking for some fun, 3 to 8 is the place to be, especially with these back markers that these drivers are going to be pulling up on soon enough. It is going to throw a little bit of a spanner into things. Loverink, it looks like, has gotten around Burke, so now Burke is going to become the problem with the drivers behind. Loverink just missing the apex there. Flomger hooking it up quite nicely, but still not in striking distance. Still a little more than 4, or a little under 4.5 to go here for these drivers. They are all getting ready to line something up and make it stick. Dornelis still ahead. Absolutely no problems for him. A little bit of weaving there on the front straight, but nothing too crazy. Down into turn 1. These drivers go. Portis looking to the inside. Clifford. No sweat on his brow at all. He knows that Portis isn't going to go for it right now. He knows he's not even going to attempt it. It's not worth it, because he knows he's just going to get around him again later on in the race. Lovering starting to rebuild the gap, and Pierce actually coming up with a 5-second penalty here late in the race. Although it is a 9-second gap down to Loverink according to the broadcast tool. But it looks like to be a little bit less than that. So this is going to be quite dangerous for Pierce. He has what is now, the scoring pylon has yet to update. He's looking at about a 6-second gap. So this is going to get very dicey towards the end. He has to make sure he hits every single brake marker perfectly and avoids all he can. Perhaps maybe getting a bit tangled up with a back marker and maybe just shoving them out of the way. Not what you want, especially with the gap you have to the guy in front and those behind. But it's Clifford, Portis, Carpenter, Landry right now. They're getting a bit antsy here. We're going to have another lap after this. So it is not over yet. Drivers have not gotten the call that it's final lap, so they know that the next time they come around, it is going to be the white flag, all or nothing, here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And what a race they've put on. Always exciting when you're here, barring the 2005, U.S. Grand Prix, but thankfully we don't have the same tire problems that Michelin and Bridgestone did. We got classic Pirellis, and they hold up quite nicely here in the States, and well, you could even say at Silverstone, depending on which discipline we're talking about. So right now it is Lovrink and Flomger, and then Clifford, Portis, Carpenter, Landry, and then Rasko and Dag. Frizza is just in his own little world right now. P9 for him, a very, very good result thus far. Jake Lewis in P10 in the background. You saw Dag dipping and diving all over the place, but could not find an opening. He is perhaps getting ready to try a move. He knows he's in the same machinery as Rasko, and he knows he's going to have the slipstream on the back straight. So that may be the time to go for a move. And right now, Lovrink really under attack from Flomger as they go down. And Lovrink again just missing that apex. And Flomger very, very close. But the final lap has been called. It is do or die for a lot of these drivers. Anything can happen. Flomger and Lovrink, Clifford, Portis, Carpenter, Landry. And then it's down to Rasko and Dag. Dag is just maintaining about half a second here to the car behind. You can see Clifford way on the inside here as we go down the front stretch. Portis has gotten an excellent run out of the final corner. Clifford is really going defensive here down into turn number 1. Onto the brakes they go. He is going to make Portis go the long way around. Portis saying, I will slot back into place here in P6. That is absolutely no problem. Just up ahead there you see Leon Burke, who is going to be a bit of a wild card here in this battle for P5. He has got to move over, and if he's going to do it, he's going to do it on this back straight as we start to roll up to it. So hopefully just lifting off, getting off to the side, and letting everybody through. These drivers definitely do not want to be caught behind him because they know that the others behind will have zero issue of taking these positions like they're being given on a silver platter. So right now, Leon Burke out the back, he's just saying, you know what, you guys are on your own. Jonathan Clifford, the inside line here, very defensive. Portis with the slipstream, he's going to try to make the move, stick around the outside, and we have got Landry going way off course, perhaps disconnecting. That is definitely not part of the game plan. So what was a 3-man battle here, or 4-man battle for P5 has turned to 3. Portis getting the move done there on Clifford. A very solid move. Thomas Pierce appears to have gotten around quite nicely. 5-second gap. Will he maintain it to Lovrink? Yes, he will. Lovrink doing an incredible job of keeping Flomger off her tail. And Portis here, the last second move, is going to secure the P5. This is what we said. He waited until the very last lap, and he's gonna get it done across the line. What an amazing run from this entire group. Clifford, Carpenter, Landry. I believe the car we saw was... Actually, no, it wasn't Lewis. It was somebody else. But an incredible battle. Chris Frizza across the line here. P9 and Jake Lewis. Sir, take a bow. A top 10 for the amateur class driver. He had to worry about Rasko, and Dag opened up his own gap and made it work. It's Rasko who is going to best Dag in the battles of the Audis, 11 and 12 respectively. It's Thompson across the line in P13, and Kevin Parody with this 10-second penalty will not have to worry about losing his position as he crosses the line. P14, ladies and gentlemen, what a race we had here. Settled down in the middle, but got quite crazy there right at the end. Racing is the thinking man's game, and it's just about patience. So we look now to the final results of this race. rather quickly before we hop on over. So overall, Dornelis picking up yet another win. Thomas Pierce, even with a 5-second penalty, nothing to worry about for him. P2, and then P3 for Loverank. In the Pro-Am category, it's Loverank, Clifford, and Fariza. And then in the amateur class, Jake Lewis taking home the bragging rights over Thompson and Parody. Parody and Robworth will be joining us here in just a hot second. But for right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to pop on over to the North American Druids split for this next race as I do a little bit of movie magic. Watch this. Ready? Bada bing, bada boom. I'm so good at my job. But very good race we had from all of these drivers. Incredibly amusing and incredibly entertaining stuff. So now it is on to the Druid split to see what they've got in store for us. We are going to take a peek at what has been done so far and what I should also probably do. So of course it will be Backerton on top. Let's be real. When is he not the fastest driver? 35.5 for him. And then Steve Davis in second place. Davis, a very consistent driver here, able to rather consistently find himself in that top 5. Right now he's rocking a 36.1, and then it's Matteo Scaptura in P3 with a 36.2. Elliot Levine a 36.4, a 36.7 for Sean Williams, and a 36.9 for Michael Louie, just barely outside of the 37 range. Hunter Page in P7 at the moment. Shout outs to the former teammate for Archive Esports. 37.1 for them. Chris Stevens, P8, a 37.43. And then Shiana Graham, 37.8. 37.83 for Keith Briscoe. Nathan Specht, a 37.9. And then Tadas Lutkis in the big old Boatley, 38.4. So probably just starting to get things worked out. And then we got Abe Duarte, Eduardo Sanchez, Tim Brook, and could it be? The safety car is back. Why didn't we have it in the first split? We had it in the second one. There's less drivers. Granted, there is still 6.5 minutes to play. And I believe that the Druids split had 18 instead of 16. So actually, it was 17 for the previous split. So I guess 18 is sort of the cutoff, or sort of the requirement to getting your safety car. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd actually like to take a quick moment to welcome to the booth Mr. Sam Raworth. Sam, tell us about the race.
I would rather not.
Okay, then we will not talk about it.
Yeah, I never got in the zone, literally from practice all the way through the end of the race. I didn't feel, like, immersed in the game. I had to remind myself I was racing, so I kind of wrote that one off. But it looked pretty good in front of me. Yeah,
it was quite exciting. We had you know, after the start of the race, we had a pretty big lull in the conversation, as it were. And then right at the end, we saw a lot of moves being made, which was quite exciting. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then 11 and 12. Was really good. Just a lot of waiting for that last lap to make a move, and well, for some it stuck, and for others it didn't.
Yeah, when I saw 4 through 8 coming up, I was just trying to find a place where I could get off so they could all go through and not, you know, have a back marker screw it up. It looked really fun.
Yeah, I saw that. I think it wasn't you. I believe it was Burke at one point, and I was like, all right, well, we gotta see if he gets out of the way, and he sort of, or no, you did. You just sort of pulled off and then parked it, right, and let everyone through.
Yeah, I figured it was the best thing I could do. I was last place and could barely look at the screen.
Yeah, that's what I saw. It's just like, all right, well, you know, the back straight's a good place to do it. He's still got a bit of a gap, and then you just sort of stopped. I'm like, all right, well, there you go. That's if it works, it works.
Everyone else sort of seemed the same there, though, huh? Renato just going off and killing everything, and then Tim and Tim, I guess, fighting.
No, it was Flomger and Loverank, actually, who were going head-to-head there at the end of the race. It was definitely something that I thoroughly enjoyed watching. And I guess while we wait for these cars to get out of the pit lane, How do you feel about this circuit? It seems to be a little polarizing.
I hated it for a while, but I really got into the groove and sort of learned it pretty well this week. So I started liking it, and I've watched all the other OOR races, so I was really, intense and impressed coming. There was some rain there, and then I just blew it in my race, but, I'm a fan now.
Okay, because I haven't had the chance to actually drive on the circuit. I've been doing a lot of stuff outside of sim racing, just period. Some productive, some unproductive. So normally I like to get a few laps in around the tracks before we actually race on them. Now, registrations are open for Season 11 of the Sprint Series, sponsored by SimRigs. The question that I raised to you, Sam, is are you going to be returning to the track, or are you going to perhaps put the helmet away for a season?
I am registered again with the Ferrari that I'm currently in.
All right, a little consistency. We like that. We'll ask Kevin the same thing when he gets here. I know he usually takes a bit post-race to sort of get everything put away and get back into commentary mode. I personally would like to race a bit, at least in the EU split, so that way I can still have time to do NA. But if I can't, hey, that's no problem. And honestly, I'd have no problem just going back and doing rookies for a bit.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about going back and doing rookies. When I did it the first time, everyone sort of dropped off, and there were a lot of pro-level people in it, so it wasn't very good, which is why I moved to sprints. But, there's a lot of pro-level people and nobody backed by me in sprints. So I think anything that you can do with OOR is good practice, and, hopefully I can get better. But the community is just really good, so I don't really feel bad being in the back of sprints. Anytime I could get into it, if I had better time for rookies, I'd definitely be there instead.
Fair enough. I know when I raced, I was always like, well, if I'm not last, then I'm doing something right. And that's sort of my goal for racing. It's like, just don't be last. You second to last, sure. But dead last, we got to have a talk. We might have to end your contract prematurely.
Yeah, I'm actually usually not last, and the interesting thing is I play the consistent game, right? It's especially at Bathurst, right? If you have someone who can actually make it around without crashing terribly, or can consistently get slow laps but never have sort of fights where you go off the track and such, you end up getting 2, 3, 4 places up, and it's actually kind of nice just to think that, oh, okay, just consistency got me there. But God, is it boring.
Oh yeah, no, it's awful. You're basically just playing Hot Lap Simulator for like what amounts to the whole night, and then yeah, like you said, just casually, passively pick up positions here and there.
Yeah, I guess the interesting thing that happens for me is, and you might have noticed this in the last race, if I'm going to qualify near last, I sort of just give up and let it happen, because I know at the turn 1, especially here in some of the other races I've watched, it is 3, 4, and 5 wide that cannot fit there. And they've done a really good job, but I'm expecting a crash, and I don't lose any time by coming in slowly and then keeping up with the crew after they go out.
Yeah, that's something we saw in the EU race. Well, they didn't even make it to turn 1. So I'm starting to wonder if maybe Mullock was watching, because normally when we do these broadcasts, we always get through turn 1, but the fact that it happened prior to turn 1 makes me wonder if the big man was watching.
Yeah, that was just bad luck, though. I mean, they both tried to get to the same place at the same time. But, hey, a 135.2, that's not a bad start out here. Everything's optimum track, same temperatures we had, no rain. Looks like they'll have a pretty similar race, pretty similar number of drivers, too.
Yeah, just, your race ended with 16, but right now we are starting with 16 drivers, minus the safety car, which would make it 17. But yeah, no, it's Backerton in that 35-2. So Backerton is sort of this splits. Actually, he is the split Stornellis. We actually see Elliot Levine really throwing that amateur rated Audi up there, P4 right now. That is a 37.18, and as I say that, bested by Williams with a 36.56. So obviously, this is not indicative of the race, but it could definitely set the tone to see who's been practicing and who hasn't.
Well, I gotta say, I had a 37.1, and I was dead last, so those AM guys look good right now, but they haven't got started yet.
Well, these tires and brakes still need to get up the temperature and for the tires pressure, so within the next lap or two, I think we should be seeing proper times. starting to crop up. But Backerton definitely setting the pace early, being almost a full second above Briscoe. I mean, that's... I think when Dornelis got his first flying lap, and he was, I think, a little under, or maybe a little bit around 3/4 of a second. So this just goes to show. And actually, Backerton improves, and now it's over a second. So Briscoe and Davis separated by 7 thousandths. Or sorry, no, 2 thousandths. I can't do math.
Yeah, wow, that's really close right there. I think, what was it, Flemger and Dornelis both in the 49s in our set, but Dornelis was somehow below 49.5, which is, or is it 39? What am I thinking
Are
about?
we talking times? Like lap times?
I completely just lost lap time in my
34.
head. 34.9. Sorry, the 9 is what I'm thinking of.
I was gonna say, I'm like, if you're hitting 49s, yeah. That's a problem.
It was pouring rain. You didn't see it. It's fine. But no, I think he was the first 34.9 and then below 5. Everything else I've seen today was a 34.9, like 9, 9.8, and all the other races. Renato just killed that lap.
Yeah, he just sort of strolls on up and does his thing, refuses to elaborate and leaves. It's typical stuff for him. Right now, though, Backerton maintains P1 for the time being. He's a little over half a second up. We'll actually pop on the camera with him. Matteo Scaptura is gonna just eke out Briscoe for that P2 by a little over, or a little under 3/10. So across the line, Backerton goes. What's the new level gonna be? A 34.5. That is rather quick, and everybody is at least a second under him at this point.
Yeah, that was spectacular and a little bit unexpected, going 0.2 seconds faster and then suddenly what, 0.48 or something. That's a huge jump.
Yeah, a little. I think it might have been closer to 6/10. So very good improvement for him. Dave Hasser right now way down in P15, so he's gonna just pop on up, make it a P14. Not really enough, and then immediately gets pushed back down into P15 by the McLaren of, I believe that was Sanchez. Yes, it was. So Sanchez up into P6 for him. Solid start. Matteo Scaptura here. 3/10 up is P2 over Louis and Davis. A lot of German manufacturers here in this top 5.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. A lot of the chatter's been that the mid-engine cars do very well here. And if you look at it, I mean, McLaren's 6, 7, 8, and then the Lamborghinis, there's really not, except for the Audi, there's no mid-engine cars up in the top. A bit weird.
Yeah, this is a track that definitely favors things like the Audi and the Honda. We did see that in the last race, especially with these, with the front and the back straight, where those cars really do shine. Obviously, they do pretty well in these technical sectors 1 and 3, and the latter half of sector 2. But you got to make do with what you got in Backerton right now with a 34.5. I mean, he doesn't really care what we think. He knows what he's got. He's got a Porsche, and he's going to make it work.
If you can make the Porsche work, you can do anything in this game, and that's really sort of the gold standard, I think. Which is why I own a Porsche,
Yeah.
Just sort of had to throw that out there.
Yeah, just
But
casually.
I mean, I think we're gonna have the Backerton single race, I think, like we had last week, right? He's just out there, no one else around him. There seems to be a single guy in every one of the races, so it's nice to look back down this line and see how many people are close to each other, and sort of hope that extrapolates throughout the race.
Yeah, we saw that in your race, actually, with Dornelis sort of just off doing his own thing, and then Battles just sitting and smoldering before, becoming a light later on. So yeah, we'll definitely, I would say, even from at least P3 down to maybe 6 or 7, I would say would definitely be something to look forward to, and then 8 and 9. And Scaptura are kind of just in his own little world, so we can't really call anything yet, of course. We still have a little ways to go before we get into the race. 5.5 to go on qualifying, though. We've seemed to have settled down a bit. Drivers at this point improving by a couple tenths or not really at all.
We seem to have got 2 more players.
That we have. It is John Steele joining us, and John Steele immediately decides that he's had enough of me not talking about him, and immediately goes up into P6. And Bobby Babas Let's Goes is just starting an outlap right now. So the next time he crosses the line, it will be the start of a flying lap for the Aston Martin. And a pretty sleek looking livery, I must say. I do like that color combination.
Yeah, there are a lot of those orange Astons out or orange BMWs in another race. It does look good. But, you know, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about it the entire week, the entire last 2 weeks. The pit exit at this track. It's always going to cause an issue.
Yeah, it takes you forever to get to your box because it feels like the line for your pit limiter is quite a ways back, and then you spend all that time trudging down the pit lane, and then you get to your box, and then you sit there, what feels like forever, and then it seems like it takes another 6 lifetimes to get to the pit exit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start my engine, get in first gear, get going, and then slowly put my gloves on, take a drink, you know, maybe have some chocolate, something like that. And eventually, I'll then plan to leave the pit exit. But the other issue, you know, is you come right out in front of everybody, and that can be dangerous. But even if you get that line right, one of the things that struck me is how many of those rubber marbles are in the pit exit area. So you're immediately coming out with cold and dirty tires. It's just awful.
It is. It's something I'm kind of glad I don't get to experience right now, but I'm sure those children you were able to raise while you were waiting to exit the pit lane don't want to see you crash at that point. But John Steele actually managing to pip out Scaptura for that P2. Backerton appearing to have kind of settled in for that 34.5. We look around to see who's improving. Dave Hasser is just starting, or actually getting towards the end of his lap, a little bit of an improvement. And Bobby Babasletsgos has yet to set a time as he has just started his first flying lap, so we'll see where he ends up after he crosses the line. But Dave Hasser at 10th won't really do him any good. Bring him a bit closer to Brook and a little bit further from Lutkus.
Definitely not biased, but I like seeing that Porsche one too.
Of course you do. Of course you love seeing it. So across the line, Hasser goes. He will improve, but nothing much to really write about. So we look to Babasletsgos, and while we watch our 316 Aston Martin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the booth, Mr. Kevin Parody. Kevin, give us the rundown of the race.
Oh, hello. First of all, thank you for having me. That was a race of 2 halves. The first half was a blast. I was racing people the whole time, and then I kind of fell into one of those holes. But, yeah, odd moment. Got a sped in the pit lane, legitimately got the 10-second penalty, and it ended up making no difference. So I had enough of a gap to cover it. So an interesting race for the first half, and then the second half a little less so. But good fun all around.
A slightly different story than what Sam told us earlier. Sam did not want to talk about it, and then proceeded to talk about it.
Hey, we get a drop race, right?
Sorry?
yes, we do. We didn't get. I don't think we got in single file until going onto the back straight. So on lap 1, so that was very exciting a number of times, at least from my seat.
That was pretty exciting for me here in the booth, and yeah, it was a pretty good race. It was rather spicy at the start, and then everyone sort of settled down, got into the rhythm, and then towards the end, the last 2 laps or so was really where we saw a lot of moves happen. Actually, even the last lap is where a lot of moves happened, and I'm wondering if that's going to happen here. It also happened in the EU race, and I'm assuming also in AP. Haven't had a chance to watch those back yet, but I would not be surprised if Druid Split decided that they were going to also do the same thing.
I was
surprised P4 right there with Babaletsko. Sorry to cut in,
yeah,
but
no,
did you see that jump?
No, I saw that, and I was like, well, you guys are talking, we're going to talk. I'm going to taunt shout out later, but that was an improvement, and up into P3, so the Aston Martin definitely making a statement here, especially for an amateur class driver. He's driving like the pros right now.
I'm going to say that's how you get bumped to the next class for next season right there.
Speaking of next season, registrations are open. Kevin, what is your plan? Are you going to be back on track, or are you going to be in the booth?
I'm planning to do both again, because apparently I'm a glutton for punishment. So yeah, I'm going to do all the races for sure, and at least most of the commentary.
Well, Well, that's
Looking forward to next season. I think those tracks suit my style a little more than this year. There was a lot of tight, twisty stuff this year, and I just I got a lot better than I was at the start of the year. But there's it's going to be nice seeing places like Silverstone and Monaco on the list.
Monaco.
Monaco. That's in my dreams. That's in my dreams. It's my favorite track in the entire world. But Monza, seeing those on the calendar is a nice big smile.
God, you have me worried there for a second. I'm like, they are not adding Monaco to this game. If this was Assetto Corsa, sure, we could do that.
Oh, there's lots of cars you could race at Monza. GT3s, I don't think are one of the ones I want to watch. That would be a parade.
What's there's a clip I remember of this like 10-car pileup. It was I think it was some track in China. It was like the narrowest road. I'm blanking on the name, but that would basically be Monaco. It feels like. Someone's going to correct
again,
me.
I think, this year, actually. And every year they say, why do we race here? Why do we race here? It always happens. And they keep going back.
Yep. The punchline is tradition, and it's never going to stop. And, yeah.
They should just put the drivers in little go-karts.
Yep.
That would be that'd be dangerous. I like it. But
I don't think the teams would like putting their $50 million a year drivers in an open top go-kart with no seatbelt and letting them have fun. I don't think that's on the cards.
Well, if they're tough. They got muscle. They can make it work.
They'll bounce.
Yeah, they'll bounce. They're squishy. Yeah, but no. Next season will definitely be exciting because we also have a sponsor, and that is SimRigs. So instead of it being the Octane Online Racing Sprint Series, it'll be the SimRigs Sprint Series, which is very exciting. I hope to participate myself, but if not, I have zero problems just going into the rookie series and just having a little fun there for the time being. Maybe offer a little bit of commentary.
And with our new sponsor also comes a whole new program for our Patreons as well. So you sign up to that program, go and look at the details on the Discord. There's a nice pitch to go and see both of those places.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a new chapter for the OOR.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all going to be here for it. And the thing we have to be for right now is this race. So it's a front row lockout for the Porsche, which one of our commentators is definitely not biased towards at all. And then that gets split from other German manufacturers by Babas Letgos, who does an amazing job just showing up at the end of qualifying and immediately snacking a P3. I mean, that's incredible stuff.
Especially, as you said, with that amateur tag still on the door.
Well, you usually see red tags with the sale, and I'm sure there was a bit of a sale going on for the amateur class rating, so he's probably going to bring that back, get his money, and, well, maybe swap it out for a Pro-Am, or heck, even a Pro if he can keep it up, but that's something we'll have to wait and see for next season.
And before we get to next season, we've got the interesting format at Paul Ricard next week.
Yes.
The 2040 with the reverse grid for the 40-minute race. I'm looking forward to that a lot. Where I tend to start, that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, we see. We haven't seen the Super Sprint format since the very beginning of the season. The very first race out at Kyalami was a Super Sprint, and then those were the bread slices, and the meat of the sandwich was all sprints and the extended format. So it'll be nice to have a bit of a change of pace.
I think we lost maybe the first quarter of that first race, though, due to a safety car, because the sprints are so short, and turn one is always turn one. So it was really interesting because it turned a sprint into like a super sprint into a super sprint, and the whole thing went crazy, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, try to avoid safety cars here in this last race of the evening. We do have patented safety car sponsored by Janetta. I talked about, I think, in the EU split, where the I was wondering, because we usually do a little custom livery for the safety car. I was wondering if we would somehow get a SimRig sponsored one, but we'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised though.
That sounds like a very good idea. If somebody hasn't posted that yet, they should.
Well, if they haven't, I claim ownership of it. I said it first.
Yeah.
I get the patented first comment under the video if we ever
Yes.
put out. Well, this is the SimRigs safety car, and I'll just be like, first. Oh.
Maybe you should wait and see if people hate it first.
No, I will take it on the chin like a champ.
No.
Oh, you don't like it? I will gladly take responsibility for that. But I mean,
there's no way that one wouldn't be great. Let's be fair.
I mean,
this
especially
is, as you said.
Yeah.
As you said, this is a kind of a big step up for OOR, big sponsor, and looking forward to it very, very much. It's going to add a whole new twist to next year.
It's either going to be the shortest month or the longest month, depending on how you want to look at it. If you're a racer, it might be the shortest month. And if you're a commentator, it might be the longest month. If you're a spectator, it could also be a pretty long month. A lot of the people who tune in, this is almost sort of a religious ceremony, a ritual, if you will, for their week. Every Thursday they tune in, and when you have a whole month when there's nothing, you sort of just sit there and you go, well, now what?
Well, speaking to anyone who is watching, and you talked about it a little bit earlier, with Simrig coming in, and there's going to be some actual prizes and stuff. If you are racing for us and you're not a Patreon, you should, even at the lowest level, you can start competing for those actual prize type races. But also the lowest level to the highest level, anything helps. The lowest can still help us. So if you guys are out there and you're watching, get on our Patreon and watch this fun race and help us put out more.
Absolutely. It's this entire organization is volunteer driven. It's usually Mullock who's shelling out the dollars mostly for servers and just upkeep in general. But outside of that, racers, stewards, commentators, and broadcasters, it's all volunteer work, and it's something we all love doing. If we didn't, well, we certainly wouldn't be here. But for right now, we're 2x2 here at Indianapolis for the last time this evening. Vulcan Backerton, another dominating performance in qualifying. Steele will join him in the Porsche 1-2 for them. And then Babas Letgos just pops in and grabs a P3, and then it's Scapatura, Briscoe, Sanchez, Louis Davis, Williams, Levine, your top 10, Speck, Brooke, Duarte, Page, Graham, Stevens, Hasser, Lutkiss behind them. Onto the front straight we go for the last time here this evening. It's green, 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 and it's an excellent getaway for Backerton, and behind them is Sanchez getting an excellent run off of Briscoe. And Babas Letgos actually losing out a little bit there to Scapatura as we go down to turn 1. It's all going to come down to this for a lot of these drivers. 3 wide in the background temporarily. Steele trying to make a move around the outside. He's actually going to get the move done almost as he has the inside line for turn 2. And down to turn 3 is actually going to go Backerton's way door to door here for the 2 Porsches. Already fighting it out at the start of this race. We hop back in the grid. We've got the Audi of Louis going way offline. Babas Letgos as well having to deal with Briscoe behind. And it seems as though the Audi, or not the Audi, sorry. It's Babas Letgos going wide. He's letting it go. But this is an incredible start in the background. Same Steven and Hasser Lutkiss going toe-to-toe here as we go onto the back straight. We have got 2 and 3 abreast here. Look at this battle right here.
Oh, Bubba Letgos getting mugged repeatedly in that first section of that lap. All the way down to 10th place. That's got to sting.
Yeah,
I'm surprised there's not a bigger gap, actually. As we were watching those 2 leaders come through, one of the purple McLaren got a little bit of a, argy-bargy there, and there's a little bit of slowdown with everyone else in turn 1. So I'm just glad they've sort of got back into the race.
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit of an interesting start for some drivers. Other drivers getting it quite well. Backerton already pulling out a massive gap. You can see it to Steele. He's left him in the dust.
Oh my goodness. Over a second back already. The next 3 positions are all sort of within 6/10 of each other. So we've got a familiar pattern, I would have to say, developing here at the front. The race is definitely on for 2nd through 5th.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be willing to put money up to see Dornelis and Backerton go head-to-head. I mean, they're basically the same driver at this point. We saw the same thing with Dornelis at the start of the Corkscrew race. Just right at the start, getting the pedal down and getting away from everybody. Same with Backerton. So everybody else will be vying for positions, and we should be seeing things start to heat up towards maybe the middle to end, especially when pit stops start coming through.
Yeah, an OR All-Star race would be great to watch those guys. But right here, it's going to be interesting to see with this new, this new racetrack and people sort of being 50-50 on it. Backerton and Renato, those guys can just go crazy, but can everyone else keep it going? I mean, you might see people who are pros and, pro-ams that are way behind some of the amateurs. Is that just practice, or are they misclassed? That's what I think is going to be interesting in this race, is who's consistent and who really knows the track.
It really does shuffle that order. I mean, you can see that now. There's a lot of pro-ams and AMs right up in the top 10. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. This track gives some people that you maybe wouldn't expect to see it nearer the front up there for a change.
Yeah, and it's...
There are also...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, there are also a few places on this track where if you hit it right, it's immediately a few tenths up. And if you hit it wrong, it's immediately a few tenths down. Now, a lot of tracks have that, but the ones you can really notice here are when you really cut that turn at the end of the S's, and then coming out onto the front straight, if you get that last turn in correct, you're full throttle all the way around the second to last turn. If you get it correct, you're full throttle around the last turn, which basically doesn't count. So those are the two ways you can immediately lose like half a second in this race, and you can watch and see who's getting that right and tell who's really going to be a good fighter.
And with the tire pressures and that sort of thing as well, those first couple laps until everything sort of stabilizes, that's where you get to see that driver skill coming through as they're making these cars dance when they really would rather just be driving in the grass. The cars, I mean, not the drivers.
Oh, yes, of course. It's, you guys sort of just took the words out of my mouth. Never mind, I was going to add on to it, but you guys already said it, so I'm not going to say anything.
Well, that's okay. Then I'll be the one that starts the rumor. Has anybody ever seen Backerton and Dornell in the same race at the same time?
That's a very, very good point. No, you know what? You might be onto something, all right? You might be onto something. This could be part of the Octane Online Racing, like, iceberg. That Backerton and Dornelis are the same person. Goodness. Now
Kyrudin might be in there too.
Who?
Ali Kyrudin.
Oh, you might be. Yes. Oh my God, you might be right. What sort of Mewtwo, science created monster has the OOR created? It's insane what we can do here with our little sim racing organization. But we see Hunter Page trying to go for a move on the inside of Dave Hasper, having to back out. Ooh, a little bit of oversteer. Corrects it perfectly, though. Keeps it going. And now Stevens catching up to the fellow Lambo.
Here's a conspiracy for you.
Oh, God.
All of those guys are actually AI that OOR is putting in, so we have someone to chase even at the pro level.
Those, like, impossible ghosts you used to play in the old racing games. You're like, no way the devs could have done this. This is cheating. Only to find out that they played a secret level you didn't know about that made their car like so much faster. Oh God, we're professionals here. We are professionals here. But right now though, we have to sort of just comment on the fact that things have really calmed down. Drivers are single file racing, of course, and they're just starting to try to find the proper lines for their rides. We should mention that Clouds have moved in. It took quite a while for the Clouds to show up in your race, you two. But this race, they're showing up right away, so I'm wondering if there's a little bit of precipitation on the way.
Maybe, but the temperature also dropping could help these guys. I mean, people have talked about Indy being sort of a track for tire degradation. It's really hard when you slam on the brakes over and over again and then wrench the wheel in on so many of these short, slow turns. So if you start having that tire degradation, usually doing the heat buildup, as the temperature sort of drops, as you lose fuel as you drive around, this might allow you to go a little bit longer, maybe pit a little bit later.
We had a yellow flag temporarily. I don't know what that was all about. Looks like the problem's cleared itself. But yeah, the tire degradation is a huge problem here at Indianapolis. And I don't know about you guys, but did you feel like when the Clouds rolled in, your tires got a little bit better, or do you feel like they were about the same just because of how late it was in the race?
I went a little longer than I should have, to be fair, when I pitted.
Ooh, Shiana Graham, sorry.
That was close.
Big
Graham
slide
and
there.
Levine almost turned into a fence event right there. I was watching that as well. So, yeah, that's far more exciting than anything I was going to say. And it doesn't look like it's over. There's 3 of them nose to tail now.
No, and Graham has done a very good job of keeping Levine at bay. So now it's just about getting that Mercedes back up to where it was before. Levine, excuse me. Dave Hassler, Hunter Page also catching up. So looks like the battle for 11th could be on the horizon, as well as P3, and I would even put P7 in there. So a few more battles starting to come to life here, but there's still 51 minutes. I don't think anyone's really going to be going for much.
This is still where you're looking for where you're strong and they're not, or waiting to see if they're going to respond to the pressure you're putting them under. But yeah, it's not dive bomb time yet. not by yet. About 45 minutes. Yeah.
No, we saw a few at the like the final lap, like the last minute and a half or so. So yeah, that's maybe what people are also waiting on, just saying, you know what, I will go for it when I go for it. And right now, that's not now, that's later. Sean Williams here actually losing a position out to Babas Let's Goes. Looks like a little bit of a switcheroo in the back there as the Aston Martin starting to regain some ground he lost right at the start. And looks like that charge up to Briscoe is starting to get into motion.
Williams seems like he was dropping off a little bit too, but hopefully you can stick with him and keep this thing going. You kind of bring in the other drivers right behind when this happens. I mean, now he's at risk, but you bring up the next and the next. Now we've got a better fight going on.
Yep, saw that a lot in pretty much every race. You know, you bank on the other guys fighting a lot, but then they sort of have this unconscious, talk of, hey, listen, we'll stick with you. You bring us up to this person, and then we all fight together. So we might see that later on in the race, and especially once pit stops are starting to go through, then we will see just where people get spit out and if they can maybe undercut someone or overcut another.
One somewhat rare trait about this track that makes it a little bit tricky is all the different times you switch from like tarmac to cement to asphalt, etc., etc., and you're doing so a lot of times mid-turn with some G-forces on your outside wheels. So some of the big problems are that's where your turns start at a few of those, or that's when you're full on sideways. So if you see someone coming up really fast behind another car, that's where we saw a lot of crashes in the other races, because you think you're going to make that pass, but then when you're offline on somewhere like, let's say, this back straight where there's all these bumps and there's transitions, and it really tends to mess up your car. So I think caution is sort of what we were talking about. That's the name of the game until you really need to push it.
And yes, as you mentioned, going along with all those surface changes, or the bumps, this place will throw you around in places, and it affects your ability to do what you might want to do with your setup as well, because you have to take them into account to some extent at least.
Yeah, and you need to make sure that you're not setting your car up specifically for one of those race surfaces, because they all, like we said, it handles a little differently depending on what you're driving across, and if you end up setting your car up more for one than the other, you may end up losing time. It's not, a huge, big time difference, but it's definitely something that you should be looking out for.
Whoa, is that 2 or 3 wide in the back there? Can we go back to that one?
Yeah, it is actually in the way, way back. Sean Williams and the BMW there of Steve Davis starting to feel the pressure of Nathan Specht. Or no, sorry, that isn't Specht. That was that cannot be a back marker, is it? No, it's the 003 of Specht. Throwing me off with these triple numbers. And Sean Williams will keep this P9. So yeah, we did have 3 wide there, but nothing really crazy happened. We pop back up here. You can see Babas Let's Goes. Once he got around Davis, it was all smooth sailing as he gets a little wide there. But he is doing an excellent job of catching up after that first lap.
Curse.
I didn't see any. Sam, are you okay? Are you feeling a little under the weather, man? You're coughing a little bit much. Is everything good?
Oh, that's why I drove badly. That was it.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, you should probably rest up and take your Tylenol.
I think at this point.
Yeah. I was gonna say this fight right here are all different, makes. So it's not like we've got a bunch of the same car going on. Everyone's got a little bit something different. Straight line speed, cornering speed, brakes. You really all gotta watch the entire lap to see where they sort of slinky in and out.
Yeah, the Audi of Louis, and then I believe that was Sanchez there up ahead in the McLaren will definitely benefit on these long straights, and then the BMW and the Aston should do a bit better on the these more technical sections. We saw it a lot in pretty much every single race, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see who can make up time where. Is a little bit squirrely there for Sanchez. That'll give Louis a chance to maybe sneak up the inside. Not quite. Not looking for a move just yet. Maybe banking on the backstretch. As you see, Babas Let's Go's just sliding there behind the 501 BMW of Briscoe.
You can tell that Louis probably not going to dive on this. I think he's so cautious. I mean, look right there, but look at the end of the long straight. He was easily going to catch up, but he went wide a little bit, slowed down a little bit just to make sure he didn't go into the braking zone too hard. 2 or 3 times already this lap you've seen where someone could have dove. Someone could have maybe taken a bit more of advantage of it, but he's real cautious, and I think he's just going to wait for a mistake from Sanchez.
Yeah, that's the name of the game here at Indy. You don't really get a lot of overtaking opportunities, so just wait for your opponent to make some uncharacteristic error and just strike. We saw it a lot in AP, we saw it a lot in EU, and obviously NA. But it is always something I think every driver is sort of looking out for, and that might even mess you up a little bit, because you think, well, if I make a mistake, then the person behind is going to catch up, and that might inadvertently make you the one who is making a mistake, and the person catches up, and then your worst nightmares are realized, and now you got to do it all over again.
Yeah, with 45 minutes left to keep doing it all over again.
Mm-hmm. We should see pit strategies getting played out in the next 10-15 minutes. I think your split waited until the halfway point. Just do 50 and 50 on each, or sorry, 30 and 30 on each. Just split it up nice and evenly.
Yeah, we were seeing some people in earlier races dive in early if they had some, a little bit of damage, or maybe they were stuck in a pack and they tried to use some sort of undercut, but their tires suffered a lot near the end, so doesn't seem to be the right play here.
No, and going long wasn't a big help. At least I noticed myself and the people around me were sliding around as bad by the end as the people that had stopped sort of on the halfway line. So the track just got slicker and slicker and more abrasive. So I'm expecting, as you said, I'm expecting to see that tonight. We saw it in every other race so far today. So.
Yep. Oh, we've got Hunter Page here. Looks like getting around Chris Stevens. So we go down into the braking zone here. Very, very defensive line there from the Mercedes. Maybe a little bit of a switcheroo, but will not come to fruition. Shiana Graham holding on to that P13 for the time being, but Page is definitely not done yet. Maybe looking to get some move around the outside. A bit of a better run there for the Lamborghini as they head down into the heavy braking zone. Looks to the inside, but the door is not open, slightly ajar, but not enough to throw yourself through.
Well, something happened there. Stevens was tucked right between those two on the overall board. Waited a few seconds, and now he's dropped down to 17th while we were watching that.
And
so didn't see it.
Hassar has done the same thing. They're down to 15th, and they were right in amongst these two. So I think we might have perhaps missed something there. There might have been an event.
Maybe a slight excursion. I know obviously the grass will do that to you, but the sausage curbs seem to always be a bit of a gamble as to whether or not you're going to lose control. At least in my experience.
There are a couple here where if you hit them just at the end of your exit of the pit, you're sort of just about to track out. If you have the right settings and ride height, they can actually hook you around and help you. But man, if you miss those, yeah, this is a track that'll bite you as soon as you miss them. There's just so these short, skinny areas like they're going through right now with those S's. If you hit something and slide off, you start tracking out into the grass, and there's really no way to recover, at least without losing, I don't know, a second, 2 seconds, and definitely a plate.
This track is different in a lot of ways, and one of them is it kind of took me a while to figure out. It feels like a street course, like Long Beach or something. Not because there's walls everywhere, there isn't, but because it's patched together out of existing roads. There's no sort of, it's not purpose built. So you get these weird 90-degree corners, and these, both ends are very similar in ways. So it's an odd track that way. If you come here expecting super speedway, you are going to be disappointed because, we get one straightaway of it, not even the whole thing.
But I feel like like you said, that sort of patchwork of different road courses or different just tracks, also I feel like kind of encompasses IndyCar, because they're not just racing at ovals, they're not just racing at, tracks, they're doing all these different surfaces. So, in a way, you could argue that this is sort of an homage to IndyCar and all the different tracks that they go to.
Well, so interestingly, the closest real track to me is called Thompson Speedway, and I go run there a lot. And they're known for having a NASCAR oval. Not a big one, but it is a NASCAR oval. They still run some small NASCAR races. And then the actual track includes that as part of it, not sort of in the same way, but you have those transitions at that track in real life. I know the feeling of going from tarmac to cement and back. And yeah, it can upset you. You've got to get ready for it. Sometimes you have to, get the stiffness on your suspension a little bit looser just for that part of the track and sacrifice other places. It's interesting to tune for something like this, especially with a new track here in this game that maybe people haven't spent enough time tuning on.
That's actually very interesting. I didn't know that. Kevin, what's the closest circuit you live to?
That would probably be a temporary circuit for me. I'm in Western Canada, so probably the previous and future location of the Vancouver Indy race. I think they're doing an E-Prix there as well this year. So.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I live closest track to me, as far as I'm concerned. At least, I know there's a track in Massachusetts, but there's nothing really happening. So I'd say closest track would be Watkins Glen, actually, which I'd love to race on at some point in real life. Obviously, I've done it in the sim, but not quite the same.
Oh, boo. Massachusetts has Palmer. That's much better than, at least than Lime Rock. Watkins Glen would be
Palmer,
insane.
isn't it like Western Mass or something? I think it is.
Just barely sort of west of Worcester. It's not too far west.
Oh, geez. Okay.
It's on I-90.
Right. Okay,
it's certainly closer than Watkins Glen if you're anywhere around New England.
Yeah, well, I also haven't really... I know a couple of years ago, I was like, what tracks are there here in this state? And I'm like, there's none. There's, we do have a sort of a speedway in Seekonk. It's really it. But yeah, no, Palmer, I think, was the one I had looked at. But I don't know, maybe I take a little journey there someday.
You should. And if anyone else is, out there listening, I really like comparing my real track time to, the sim racing. It sort of keeps me practicing and going, especially throughout the winter. Now, there's some differences that come up and bite me. Like if you're, a pro, you might be taking these weird lines because the video game somehow is written in the code, makes that work better, and I just can't do that because naturally it doesn't work. But if you are a sim racer and you want to go out and drive on the track, this is something I'm really trying to help people do. It can be expensive, but it's not that hard to get experience and get started. There are free ways to go out and do parade laps of pretty much every major track in at least our country. There's lots of ways to get on and drive other people's cars, your cars, have ride-alongs. All that stuff is out there. So if you're sim racing and you love doing this, find some time, get on the track, see what it's really like. It's really amazing.
Got it. I will now soup up my 2000 Corolla and send it. I would love to do that. It probably wouldn't go over too well. But anyways, enough about what we got to do in our real lives and what we want to do in our real lives. We got to get back to the action here. So things have settled down a fair bit. We're just getting into the time trials mode. We actually saw Paige there, just barely off screen, going for a bit of a move on Graham. Nothing quite yet. So this battle here for P12. will definitely be something to look forward to. 37 minutes to go, and I think we should be seeing pit stops come through the next 7 to 10 minutes.
Which I think is going to be very interesting, because 4th through 7th, arguably 4th through 8th, are all but nose to tail. So they're certainly within the undercut, overcut, good pit stop, bad pit stop, changing the course of their race moments.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned P8. I completely forgot about Davis. I mean, he was rather far back at one point and managed to just sort of pull himself back in, using as much of Babas Let's Go as he can right now to try and catch back up. Of course, there is the slipstream for all of these cars as we go down into turn 1. And just heavy on the brakes, down the gears they go. Up ahead it is Sanchez leading from P4, and then Louis, Briscoe, Babas Let's Go, and Davis. So yeah, that 4 to 8 is really heating up. And then of course, Backerton, well, good old Backerton, just up doing his own thing right now. And you see Steele there in the background, and he is out of frame before you can even give him a passing glance.
The entire podium's sort of checked out, so yeah, this is really the best of the rest fight right here, and honestly, that's where the good racing is at this point. You know, the podium is just not that interesting. These guys can shuffle off. I want to see who gets 4th.
And now you have cursed them. Congratulations. And you will be receiving an angry Discord DM from one of them in due time. Congratulations, Sam. Join the club. Actually, we have pit lanes already, so Paige and Hasser very early. It seems.
Yeah, they both dropped back a little bit at the same time, so maybe they're dealing with some damage, or they just wanted to get off and take a rest. But I wonder what that +5 from Stevens is.
Yeah, whoa, in the background, hold on. That was Davis going wide. We got to roll this one back. We just missed this. Let's Babas Letgos up there. Up ahead. What happened? Did he just miss his
that's a
break point?
hideous. That's a hideous feeling. I know that one so well. You see them coming, and it's like, there's no way. And you have to stay off the line and wait and wait and wait until they do that, and then you can turn in and go around. It's heart-wrenching to wait and know you can't turn in until they're done almost wrecking you.
I am usually the one flying by, and honestly, sometimes it's probably on you, Kevin. And you go by, and I miss the braking point, and I'm on the inside instead of the outside, so I can't get away. And all you do is sort of pray. I hope it doesn't hurt them. I hope it doesn't hurt their race, But it looks like he caught it, and at least he being, who was it? Who caught the
Davis?
Oh, Babaletskos. Held up and was able to get around the back of Davis as he went off. So that's really good for his race, and it keeps this 4th place fight going.
Yeah, just wanted to maybe pass through, see how he was doing, see if things were looking good up front of that Aston Martin. We did see Dave Hasser pick up a 30-second stop-go or pit lane speeding. It is removed now, but I'm sure that'll get replaced with 10 seconds rather shortly. It's an unfortunate thing to happen, especially this early in the race. So he is going to be dealing with that. So even if he manages to get around Page, well, he's got to open up a 10-second gap, which is looking pretty difficult to do. Onto the front straight we go again. It is Louis ahead of Briscoe, and then Babas Letgos just in the background, a 1.5 seconds back, not really doing much, and Davis into the pits now.
We haven't really talked about this pit entrance, and it is a trap waiting to spring on you. It is so tempting to go in there faster than you can. You come around the corner and you don't see that. I mean, the cone is there. You've practiced and everything else, but every single time I come around that corner, it's like, oops, too late. And yeah, I did it again tonight and took 10 seconds. So that entry is brutal. It's so much talk about the exit. The entry kind of gets overlooked, but it can be every bit as race breaking as that exit.
Yeah, especially if you're in a race that's really close and you're really trying to optimize that, seconds where you get your braking point to enter, get your braking point to get on the lift, and get your starting engine point. All those sort of things in their tiny little fractions of a second fight with somebody can be really nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that drivers tend to neglect when it comes to practice sessions. They're so busy learning the corners and learning the brake points and how much throttle you should apply in this corner, and do you hold the gear in this corner, or do you shift up, or do you shift down, that they tend to forget about how to do their pit lane or their pit entries, and it does bite them in some cases, like we have seen not just here at Indianapolis but even other tracks. So if you're out there and you're practicing for a race, make sure you practice your pit stops, because you may end up with a stop go or a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And Sean Williams doing a very good job actually slowing right down to get to the line.
Davis might be coming out right now in this pack down at the end too.
Steve Davis, yeah, just actually let Steele on through, and then he's got, I think, quite a bit of a gap down to Scaptura. So yeah, Jonah Graham is well into the pit lane. So yeah, like you said, you come around this corner and you can see it, and you brake quite early to make sure that you get your speed down enough. But yeah, always remember practice. Oh, what's going
Bubba
on?
Let's Go's had gotten decided it was time to go, and unfortunately, when they went over on the green stuff. So they have temporarily left the track and broken up, unfortunately, one of our closer fights.
Well, that's his tires telling him to go in the pits.
Yeah, it's time. Yeah.
You've had your fun. The sun's coming out, so the track surface will start to heat up, and that'll definitely play a role in how these new set of tires behave. I know with your race, you two, it came in what, the last 15 or so minutes?
That track just spent, in my experience, that track spent the entire night getting slipperier and slipperier. I just, you get stuck in that rut where you're trying to make up time and you end up losing it instead. But that was a challenging surface to race on tonight, at least in the setup I had.
Yeah, I had a problem where I was practicing and running quality lines, and everything was really good. I was getting faster and faster, but as soon as I put some race fuel in the car around this track, just couldn't really handle it. I was very much slower than my quality laps compared to usual. So I think that's another thing that can be an issue, is when you come in, how early you come in or how late you come in. Were you able to change in your menu how much fuel you need? Are you able to offset something correctly? Were you able to change your tire pressures? And oh, that was close.
Lucas.
More issues again with Briscoe and Bubba Let's Go's involved. And Levine, I believe, was the third one involved in that. No contact, just a lot of sliding and a little bit of off track. We are at that magic halfway point. So maybe it's, maybe as I mentioned earlier, maybe it's time to, some of them are deciding it's time to go now. It's time to close up these gaps and see what they can actually do.
Yep, move on to the next set and try to work a little bit of magic. Speaking of moving on to working some magic, Howell here. Looking forward to moving into sprints next season. Glad to have you. And, well, we'll see if we give you some screen time. We try to give as much as we can, but of course, it's all up to chance. Wink, wink. I'm definitely not controlling the cameras right now. Whoa, it just went on to Lutkus. That was weird. Out of the pit. So we have a little more than half the grid getting pitted for fresh tires, and Steele actually as well is in. Backerton deciding to stay out. Same with Sanchez, Briscoe, Boboslet goes Levine in, and then it's Duarte and Stevens who have yet to do anything. Stevens does have that 5-second penalty, so that'll get applied to his pit stop as or on the end of it. You usually go through, get the tires and the fuel done, and then you just wait an extra bit of time. And Stevens is opting to go in, get that penalty done and dusted. But Briscoe still dealing with Babas Let's who actually has done a pretty solid job of catching up. You see him almost kissing the bumper there of the BMW.
Honestly, I'm surprised they're still going at this. I mean, I know as a racer, you want to get it done on track. You don't want to go and hope that they pit wrong. But, I mean, you guys are pretty good pit window right now, and you're still fighting really hard. Maybe the, chance to go in right now is what's going to mess up the other guy,
That is a very fair point. And, maintaining the car under, what is old and worn tires is definitely a challenge in and of itself, but then to also be fighting for position while fighting the car is, I can't even put into words how just incredible that is and how much skill that takes.
And then in the case of, go ahead.
I was going to say the danger for Babaletskos is if, yeah, there we go. I was going to say if Briscoe dives and he doesn't notice it and it slows him down, but it seems like he got away with it there.
I think Babaletskos as well might be in a position right now where he's kind of in a drive for his personal pride, qualifying third and then sort of getting swamped at the start. And they've made a couple other mistakes over the evening. I think this might be that point where they're trying to make up for that. And that can either go really well or really poorly, depending on your skill level.
Well, he saw that... Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, he is winning.
Yeah, good job. He's in first place. Let's go. What a driver. No, but he saw Briscoe go into the pit, so the question is, does he stay out for this lap and then go in? Or does he stay out as long as he can and then go into the pit lane? You know, this is obviously the undercut out of Briscoe. So if Babaletskos sees this, and he does, he'll have to make the decision whether he comes in this lap or banks on Briscoe getting caught up in traffic.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what his lap time is like compared to what he was doing behind Briscoe. And if that's worse by himself sliding around, then that should be his answer. But yeah, this fight behind him is really where it's still real interesting. These guys have already pitted, so they're kind of out of position here compared to if you see Sanchez, Briscoe, and Duarte and Babaletskos coming in. So this is actually the battle for, I want to say, 5th or 6th.
Yeah, you're actually probably right. That's a very good good prediction. The battle here, though, is between Levine and Specht, the amateur class.
Oh no. Oh dear, that was a very unfortunate pit exit that involved a lot of understeer and contact, unfortunately. Briscoe coming out of the pit, and Skeptura was the unwitting and unfortunate victim of that. That might be a penalty. There was some discussion before the races as to where exactly you are allowed to go on pit exit, and I believe this breached those rules.
We'll have to take a look at it after the race. We'll just make a mental note, lap 21 for Skeptura, so we'll take a peek at that. Duarte into the pit, so that just leaves Babaletskos, who does opt to stay out just another lap more. Again, maybe for pride, just to pad the stats a little bit, to say, hey, I've led a couple of laps. And behind him is Elliot Levine and Nathan Specht, two very powerful cars here at Indy. And Levine doing everything he can to stay ahead.
With Briscoe involved in that incident at the end of the pit exit, it's interesting that that might have just given Babaletskos all the time he needs to come in and get back ahead of Briscoe. But he doesn't know that, so he might still be thinking, I gotta, push. But he may have about 10 seconds of a penalty, or even just 5 seconds of time that Briscoe had to slow down from the crash. So I think he can relax, and he's going in the pits right now to take a break anyway.
Well, we all look back to, obviously, Backerton and Steele will be able to pick this position up, of course. And then Skeptura, Davis, Sanchez, and Briscoe will, again, be the one to watch to see where it all plays out. Briscoe just now has, well, not just now, but has been starting this lap. He's a little over 25 seconds into it. So, over a minute to go for this lap, and Babaletskos is already sitting in his pit box. So that 30-second timer has already begun. And we will see if he can hashtag BACC and get back out there and maintain the lead ahead of Briscoe.
The duration in this pit lane is...
oh, yeah.
You just want a brick and a lunch. It just takes so long to get down to the end of this pit lane. And then you add the 30-second required for the tire change, and it's the best part of a lap. And that's if you get it right. So I guess if you're looking for silver linings, it makes it easy to figure out traffic, because you're going to basically come back out where you were, but one lap further down.
Yeah, you could probably predict the traffic like a week in advance with how long it takes you to get out of the pit lane. Like, It feels like forever. Baba's okay. So Baba Let's Goes is now on his way out, but how far does he have to go? So Keith Briscoe is starting another lap, and there it is. Baba Let's Goes out of the pit lane, but that Aston has to get up to speed. Will he be able to hold on to the position ahead of Briscoe? No, it is not, but he comes out right behind the BMW. That was almost perfectly timed.
Had to have had a slow pit stop or something there. I mean, unless Briscoe just kicked it into high gear after his little kerfuffle. That was a too close for comfort, I think, from what we thought would happen. Although, to be fair, Baba Let's Goes did go long, and we didn't really check his time, so he could have been losing time while he did lap after lap on those worn tires. Hopefully on his nice new tires, popping out right behind Briscoe, he can catch up and fight this to the end.
Yeah, but he's got Williams behind to worry about, and the McLaren is a little bit stronger than the Aston Martin, especially on these straights. So he's got a lot to worry about and a lot of ground to cover. Still 22 minutes here to go in this race, so anything can happen. But if you're Briscoe right now, you're definitely smiling underneath that helmet, and if you're Baba's Let's Goes, well, you're probably getting a little bit sweaty.
Well, hey, Williams and Baba Let's Goes have a nice fight for P1 for amateurs, but I mean, look at the amateurs right in the middle there. That's suspicious, I think.
Yeah, it is, especially because you have 3 pro-ams, Spec Duarte and Page, and then 3 pros of Graham, Lutkus, and Stevens, which is kind of odd because we saw the Lamborghinis do pretty well in the last race. Same with the McLarens. They're very strong here. The Mercedes, I believe you guys had a couple in your race, or it might have been you, I'm thinking. They did decently well. The Bentley, well, that's the Bentley. So it's surprising to see some of these cars that far down.
I suspect this might have something to do with practice. I mean, if you're a pro, clearly you have enough experience on all the tracks that have been out in ACC forever, and all the cars have been out forever. Maybe they just didn't spend enough time on Indy, and they thought, I'm a pro, I can pick this up really quickly, and it came to bite them. Who knows? That's what I sort of think would happen.
No, that's definitely a fair thing to ponder on, especially because the 3 tracks that were included in the America DLC, Watkins Glen, Coda, and Indianapolis, they are all relatively new tracks. You had the videos out from the devs saying, hey, here's how you drive the track, but of course it's up to the community to really refine that. So between the DLC being released and the fact that these drivers usually only focus on the upcoming track for practice, there was a break in between this week and the previous race, so you could have said, well, you have an extra week of practice, but some probably took a bit of a break from ACC to try to reset, and yeah, just not getting enough time behind the wheel here.
Up ahead, looks like Louis just closed on Sceptura for a second, but might have dropped a little bit back.
Well, he's in the Audi. It's a very strong car here. The BMW does struggle comparatively to the Audi. So Louis' last lap was a 36.1 and Sceptura's was a 36.2. So yeah, a little bit of a time difference. We saw it with EU. We saw it with the last race where you're gaining time on this lap, but then you immediately lose it in the next lap. And then you might gain a bit, but then lose a bit more in the next lap. And it's this weird back and forth, and you can never really find a solid rhythm. And it gets a little frustrating at times.
Well, what's surprising here is my comment earlier, which clearly ended up being wrong, is that, the podium had all checked out. They each had more than 5 seconds between them, maybe 4 or 5 seconds at least, but now it looks like there's a fight for third, so this is going to get pretty interesting near the end of this race.
Yep, and right now, just sit back and wait, and just, slowly, gently chisel away at the lead the person in front of you has, and then those last couple of minutes or so, that's when you go for the move.
There's something special too when you're racing for position. I mean, that's fun and it's one thing, but when you're racing for a podium position, everything gets a little more serious. you know, that mistake that you're waiting for. You might make a move on a slightly less mistake prone or mistaken corner than you might otherwise. But we're getting there. We're down to less than a third of this race left. If these guys are closing up again, this is all amateurs now, 8th, 9th, and 10th, all our top 3 amateurs in this race. So they are racing against each other as well as for overall positions.
I'll actually take a peek at it. So Babas Let's Go's is the closest amateur class to the next highest classification. See Williams there just entering shot. So Babas Let's Go's is definitely looking to pick up that P7. So Briscoe's last lap, a 35.9. Babas Let's Go's a 36.0. So definitely not what he wants, but you know, again, just slowly chip away, and then the last few minutes really start to put the pressure on, try to force that mistake and then capitalize.
Well, the benefit for Bob Letzko's right now is that Williams has dropped off a bit, so he's just putting pressure in front of him and doesn't really have to worry about behind him, which is a really nice thing in a battle. When you're stuck in that sandwich, it can be nerve-wracking on both when you break and when the guy behind you breaks.
Because there's always the issue. Oh, we've got Nathan Speck going way off. Missing his breakpoint. I was actually about to comment on that. You know, you don't want to, you know, maybe miss your breakpoint and go into the back of someone. And, well, had Levine been a little further back, then we could have seen a rather massive error. But thankfully that wasn't the case, as Briscoe now gives Babaletskos that slipstream. It's very, very slight, but it is enough to just bring the Aston Martin in. And as you see, the closer he gets, the stronger the effect. So for Babaletskos, he may be waiting till a bit later in the lap to make the move, or again, just sit behind. And at that point, just let the timer tick.
I think what helps this fight is that they're sort of similar cars. You know, especially at this track, we talk about the mid-engine, or I guess the rear engine, which is really mid in the race cars, but, you know, being better at this track, you got a bunch of powerhouse engine in the front guys all fighting a row, especially with Davis and that BMW in front. None of them are going to get this huge lead on the straights, and no one's going to be catching up in the turns. It's just neck and neck the entire way around unless you make a mistake. It's real dangerous work here, but it's also really entertaining.
No, absolutely. So we close in on these final 15 minutes, the last quarter of the race. We take a quick sidebar just to check on Louis and Sanchez, who have been excuse me, who have been sort of just keeping each other company. The last lap for Louis was that 36.6 and a 36.0 for Sanchez. Very surprising. So Louis must have had a bit of a blunder at some point, but now they cross the line, 36.6 and 36.1. So Sanchez starting to apply some pressure.
We're starting to squeeze back up in a couple of places here. We've got Sanchez closing on Louis. We've got Briscoe closing on Davis while being closed on by Babaletskos. It's tightening up again. We're getting into those moments where it's time to race. And yeah, particularly this Briscoe-Babaletskos battle has been going on so long. I think the two of them are going to be sending Christmas cards. If they didn't know each other before, they certainly do now.
They'll be the best. Well, they'll be the best men at each other's weddings. They'll be that close, and they'll even invite Davis, because why not? He's right there.
Yeah, he's right there too. Yeah,
he'll be left out. Oh, you can see Babaletskos just pushing that Aston Martin just as far as he can to get carry as much speed as he can out of the corner, dipping onto the grass a little bit. Nothing he can't handle. Davis may start feeling some pressure here, because as Babaletskos has been pushing to get around Briscoe, Briscoe's been pushing to get away from the Aston Martin, and that's brought him closer to Davis.
Yeah, he also gets some slipstream off right here.
Did Davis stop earlier than these two? I'm trying to remember. Should have made notes.
Oh, I don't.
There's a Babaletskos move again, almost.
Davis, I think, definitely was earlier, because Babaletskos was way late.
It was close. But that would make sense. Davis is probably suffering from tired egg. The rest of them have probably got 2 or 3 laps until they're in the same boat if they stop that little bit later.
Yeah, Davis's last lap was like 3 or 4 tenths slower than these two, but after that little defensive showing from Briscoe and then Babaletskos doing a little Tokyo drift, they've lost their time and they've got to build it back up. So Davis breathing a sigh of relief.
Well, unless you're in Spec Miata, battles do tend to slow people down. So even if they have newer tires going, you've still got Davis can have all the deg he wants if you see Briscoe going off or you see Babaletskos going off because they're in a fight. That's actually what's probably keeping Davis, in front of those guys and able to conserve to the end of the race.
And Babaletskos just losing out. A little bit of time there, overshot his break point. You talk about mistakes, and while it can bring someone closer to you and can allow you to overtake, it can also completely wreck a lap and set you back, as we're seeing here with the Aston Martin.
Speaking of setbacks, looked like Louis dropped a little bit on Skeptura. That race for P3 is a little bit spread out now.
It is, but thankfully the battle for P10 is closed right up. Levine still holding on by a thread to this position. He may not be a top of the amateur class drivers, but a top 10 finish ahead of Pro and Pro-Ams is definitely going to be a highlight of the evening if he can just keep it together for another 12 or so minutes. Definitely a tall order, but he should be able to reach that top shelf.
Yeah, that's a happy dance. Every time you beat somebody that's in a class ahead of you, that's something to be celebrated.
And then you parade that and you ride that high for the rest of the season, even though you're finishing like dead last. I beat the Pro-Am and the amateur, or the pro driver one time. How's the rest of the season gone? I have never seen the front of the grid. It's too scary.
Hey, why is that guy in P10 pouring champagne all over himself?
Yes.
That's the race winner. Oh, really?
Ooh.
I had no idea. But no, Levine doing just an incredible job right now defending from Spec. It is really something to behold.
We're seeing the same sort of thing from Spec that we're seeing from Babaletskos as well, that trying to catch up and maybe just pushing that little bit too hard. And every one of those little slides is going to make it tougher to catch up with that next corner, because it's just taking that little bit more off those tires. Oh, never mind, right in front of them they spin, giving it a place. Freebies are always good.
Oh, Levine
has spun on the exit of the corner.
I'm so sorry. I did it to him. Oh, looks like I'm getting hate mail now. All right. Levine, it's such a tragedy. Did so well. Incredible stuff. And then, just a bit wide there. That is a place I'm actually surprised we haven't seen more drivers spin at, because a lot of them are going rather wide and really pushing it, and the back end is stepping out. So to have it actually happen twice in this evening is surprising.
Yeah, good for them being able to get back on the horse, though. It looks like, you lose a place, but if they can fight for P11, you'd like to be in the top 10. P11 is not that bad either. You end up having this sort of battle with someone who might be, a tenth, 5 tenths faster than you in Spec, because he's in Pro-Am. You can sort of expect making that mistakes in front of them. You get a bit nervous, but I think finishing in P11 wouldn't be a big letdown for me in that position.
Well, Babaletskos is doing a pretty good job of bringing Briscoe in. The only reason that's happening is because Briscoe's caught up to Davis and has to adjust his lines, break a little earlier, break a little later here and there, and Babaletskos has absolutely no problem dealing with that. So Briscoe, breathing down the neck of Davis. This could be a 3-way fight for 6th.
I'm watching Babaletskos. Sorry.
My bad. I was just saying, as close as these guys are fighting, if you look at the other races that have been on today, a lot of the fights that have been going on, they've been going 2 wide, then 3 wide, then 2 wide. It doesn't look like there's that many actual chances that these guys have. So it's interesting, they're close. They are in a fight, but there's really not any chance for someone to dive or overtake. It just looks like they're all doing about the same thing.
Yeah, it's you know, the thing is even if you get around somebody at a circuit like this, you then have to hold that position for however much time is left. So as you're driving around and you're seeing, oh, I'm faster here, he's faster there, I can maybe gain a bit of time here if I take this line a little differently. It's better to just sit back and wait for the last lap or two and then get around them, because at that point, if you get around them on the second to last lap, well, that's going to mess with their mental a little bit, because they're going to realize, wow, he overtook me right then. You know, I got to figure it out, and I don't have a lot of time to do it. But then if you do it on the very last lap, then there's probably not even going to be enough time for it to be a thought. So at that point, you have it secured, you know, barring a mistake.
And that's the trick, that barring the mistake. I know I'm faster than them there, but if I mess up the corner before that and don't get my exit right, then I'm not going to be there to take advantage of that where I'm faster than them. So it is always a game. Not the first nor the last person to say it's chess at 200 kilometers an hour. But it's part of the fun.
See, I prefer to say it's checkers at 200 miles an hour, because I either do good or I don't. And that's it. Simple things for simple minds.
And the unit of measure showed us where you live compared to where I live. So
yes,
yeah,
sir.
That's all explicable.
I will keep using it. I don't care. I will fight every single metric user.
Stop making sense.
It's going to be...
Let's get back to the race.
Yeah, back to the race here. You know, one of those things about this track is all of the passing zones are really in the braking zones, right?
Yes.
You can kind of catch up down the straight, but really I haven't seen many people actually get around someone in the straight and get them into the braking zone. It's all about what you can get into the brake and then how much of a kick you can get out of that onto the next turn. So if everyone's fighting real close near the end of this, if their tires have a lot of degradation, if they're tired themselves, no pun intended, I guess.
Got it.
But, you know, if they're trying to make those passes in these dangerous zones, which is where you have to make it, that is a very dangerous thing to do at this point in the game. But that's what you have to do to win, and that's what race drivers are supposed to do.
Yep, take a risk, and you either get rewarded or you don't. And we've seen it a lot, not just with this race, but just every race we do. There's always somebody who's eyeing up a move it feels like almost a bit of a coin toss.
And that coin toss, I guess, looks like better and better odds as you get closer to the end. And then, again, we get to that point where it makes a difference where you are.
Baba, let's go.
Earlier.
Thought about a move down the inside. There's that, like you just said, Kevin. You get closer, and those odds seem to go more in your favor. Baba's Let's Go is just putting that on display.
Well, they and Briscoe in front of them are in these, as you mentioned earlier, these front-wheel drive cars, and both of these particular, the Aston and the BMW, are kind of famous for being very forgiving. You can make mistakes in them and still stay on the road. You can mess up a corner but still make the exit. So with that, and another move, but with that comes a sort of bravery, knowing that if you do make a mistake, you're probably not going to be race ending. It might cost you this position, but it's probably not going to cost you the rest of the race. But these two are side by side.
This is incredible stuff to watch. A little bit of a bump there from both of them as they continue this battle here, door to door. Baba Let's Go's finally making the move stick. That was an incredible little exchange.
And making a point I was trying to get to as well, passes a lot of times here are not a one corner affair. They take a whole complex. You start at corner one and you don't finish the pass like we saw there until they're going on to the back stretch. So that's 5 or 6 corners you have to be too wide before you actually get by them.
What we'll usually see right now when you have a fight like that going on for so long is the person who makes the overtake sometimes can just check out and distance themselves because they were being slowed down by the driver in front of them. If this can continue to be this close, which it sort of looks like it can, we may actually see a few more overtakes even in the last few laps.
I would like to mention that the last lap for Briscoe was 5 thousandths faster than Baba Let's Go's, and as they cross, well, Baba Let's Go's, it's a second faster, but that's because of the overtake. So, yeah, we'll see if the amateur driver here in P7 can clock out, as Sam has put it.
Well, it's too bad we can't get a picture-in-picture or 2 cameras here, because it looks like Louis might have degraded his tires in his fight for P3, and now he's got Sanchez right behind him.
I will build a second PC immediately. So that way we can do that as well. So Mullick isn't the only one in the org with 2 PCs to work off of. But yeah, no, Louis definitely fallen off. So,
oh yeah, that's a car that's just hanging on. That's the front ends. You know, they've got understeer and oversteer in the same corner. That's a car that has given up. Those tires are done.
I didn't realize that Ferrari designed the Audi. That's news to me.
Oh.
Oh, there's 2.5 minutes to go. Backerton has started another lap. Whoa, that's a very late, almost miscalculated break there from Sanchez, almost into the back of Louis. Guarantee you if that went south, that would have pulled Davis right in. You actually see Davis there in the background. Davis in no man's land right now. He's got absolutely nothing to worry about. He has 6 seconds from him to Sanchez, and then about 4 down to Babaletskos. But yeah, no, Louis has a little bit more to go. Another, let's see, next when they get back around, it should be final. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, it will be final by the time Backerton loops back around. So for one more circuit, no, one more tour, I can word, for Louis, and it's gonna be it's gonna be quite the challenge. And same with Babaletskos, he's gotten the move done. He's pulled away a little bit, but he just cannot seem to open up a gap, and he's got to worry about whether or not Briscoe's gonna go for a move.
Yeah, Briscoe had only 2/10 back, maybe half a lap ago when I was watching the times. But just to cap off that last race we were looking at, I actually think Sanchez made his braking point correct and was able to hit the apex, but he had to let up because it seemed like Louis braked too early, which is probably because of his tires that we're talking about. So I think actually that Sanchez has this, he's tracking him down. He's really setting up for that last play, but he's nervous because he knows Louis can kind of go side to side, brake too early at any time.
Yeah, now it's on to the final lap. Louis, geez, he's just on the edge of control. Yeah. That's terrifying, but he's got to do it one more time. He was praying that maybe Backerton would give him a little bit of a break, maybe just sort of park it in front of the line and then wait for the time to expire. But well, this is Vulcan Backerton we're talking about. He just keeps going like nothing even matters. So you see Louis and Sanchez here, and then in the background it is Babaletskos and Briscoe who are going to be the point of contention. I think it's fair to say that the podium is pretty much set in stone. Backerton, Steele, and Scapatura, because the gap from Scapatura to Louis, a little over 4 seconds, almost 6 seconds.
Yeah, if you can't see the guy behind you, I think you're pretty good.
Well, time's expired.
I think it's starting to look like anybody who's was going to take their shot has taken it. Sanchez, I think, is the only one that's still close, and they're over half a second back with only a few corners to go. So half a lap to go. This is where you're waiting. Make sure you hit your corners correctly and hope that they mess up just a little bit, just one more time.
And even whatever happens between Louis and Sanchez, it is still going to be a top 5 finish for both of these drivers. But of course, you want to be the one that walks away with the bragging rights. And, well, bragging rights, they're going to go to Backerton off of the back of an amazingly dominant performance. Steele as well rounds the final corner to make it onto the podium. A 1-2 for Porsche, and Scapatura just making his way around the final set of corners. Michael Louis, all the tire wear, all the tire degradation, held off Sanchez for as long as humanly possible. 4th place for him and 5th for Sanchez. A top 5 for both these drivers. A job well done. And Steve Davis, of course, the Aussie, doing an incredible job of keeping it together. Comfortable P6, and it looks like Babaletskos will just stay ahead of Briscoe at the line. 7 and 8. Williams out of the final corner. 2 amateur class drivers in the top 10.
That's a great comment on what OOR is doing here. That is clearly 2 drivers that, at least based on tonight's performance, are ready to step up. into the Pro-Am or Pro classes, depending on how they've done the rest of the season. But that was some class driving from the top of the field to the bottom. We didn't have the biggest field today, but that was some really solid driving all the way through.
Yeah, and Elliot Levine, it could have been 3 amateurs in the top 10, but we just saw the unfortunate end that he had in the spin. Heartbreaking to see. And again, apologies for the caster's curse. Levine, I will make it up to you next week. Duarte across in 12th, and of course, last but certainly not least, Graham in P13, and then obviously the safety car does hashtag safety car things. But that is going to do it for tonight's race. So before we look at everything, I do want to take a bit of a peek at the lap 21 incident that we saw with Skaptura, because we missed it earlier.
I believe it was that the Briscoe exiting the pits one?
I think so, yeah.
I believe so, yeah. So it should be right at the pit exit.
Yep, so we're going to go into helicam. So Briscoe leaves the pit lane, and he's on the throttle. You see Davis going through, zero problems at all. And, oh, that is not the line. So, yeah, it looks like you said probably just some of that oversteer right into the path of Davis.
After that was mentioned, I spent a whole lot of time saying Briscoe would have lost time, but it looks like he got pushed forward there. So actually, that went to Briscoe's advantage.
Oh, good play. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of tonight's festivities. So we are going to just take a quick look here at the placements. So in the race, overall, Backerton on top again, Steele and Skaptura. It's an all-German podium. In the Pro-Am category, Skaptura, Louis, and Sanchez. And then for the amateurs, Babaletskos gets to come out on top. Williams and Levine, 2 and 3. But gentlemen, closing thoughts here tonight.
It'd be nice to have a couple more people in these races if you look at AP Heaven and all those. But, you know, we saw, what, a 40-minute fight between Briscoe and Babaletskos and, you know, Louis and Sanchez there. So good racing. I like the track even if I didn't do well at it. I'd like to see it again, you know, maybe in a couple seasons.
Fair enough. Kevin, what about you?
Yeah. I didn't like this track much until sort of yesterday afternoon. Now it's not at the bottom of the list anymore. People are always building tiers and, you know, telling you what their worst track is. This is not my favorite, but it's a fun track to race on. You might not have a lot of passing opportunity, but it's fun and technically challenging, so I like that about it. What I can't help thinking is it's kind of a squeezed down version of Paul Ricard. So I think the setups that we're going to see next week are going to be very similar. I think the handling characteristics are going to be very similar, and I think we might, because of that, see some fairly similar results as well.
Very fair point, and the whole comment on Paul Ricard. We will be there next week for the last race of the Octane Online Racing Sprint Series Season 10, and then it will be a month off for us. Registrations for Season 11 are already open, so if you're in the Rookie Series and you're looking to move on up, hey, now would be the time to do it. And if you're a newer member of the community and you want to start getting into some racing, registration for rookies as well opening up. But ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of myself, Kevin Parody, Sam Raworth, and everybody here at the OOR, we'd like to thank you, as always, for your continued support. We'll be back in a week's time across the pond in Europe, in France, at Le Castellet, for Paul Ricard, the last week, the last Super Sprint of Season 10. We'll see you there.